All right, welcome to the special PhinManiacs edition of the NFL Draft coverage. I'm here with Ron Kniff, and we're going to do our best to hack our way through what we think is going to happen, and we'll keep you up to date on what picks are going on. And obviously, the focus of this podcast is going to be what's going to happen with Miami's pick. Are they going to move up? Are they going to move back? Are they going to sit at number 11? There's a lot of I would say there's a lot of uncertainty in the air right now in the NFL draft, more than anyone I can remember in recent memory. Right now, there's not even a clear-cut idea of who the number one pick is going to be. And there could be as many as 6 quarterbacks taken in this draft, which is extremely rare if you've watched many drafts. And so of those quarterbacks, a lot of people expect 3 or 4 of them to go within the top 10 picks. And that's going to impact the Dolphins pick, and they may very well be one of the teams that are going to go after a quarterback. So that's really what's going to focus around this draft right now. What I'm seeing, which is pretty well meaningless because there's so many smoke screens being thrown out right now, but I suppose the biggest update of today is Josh Allen is, in my mind, he's being smeared a little bit late, kind of like a Larmy Tunsil sort of thing, where he was found to have sent some racially insensitive tweets a while back, not recently. This was, before this season, I would imagine. I don't know the exact date on them, but people are expecting that maybe that may make him a culture problem in the locker room, and it may make him slide. That's completely unknown, but as of right now, the popular consensus flying around is that Baker Mayfield is going to be the number one pick of the Cleveland Browns overall. With that being weighed against it, it's going to be Sam Darnold that's going to be the number one pick overall by the Cleveland Browns. If that happens, I think the Baker Mayfield one is the newer development. It's going to change things a little bit. I think that a lot of people were expecting Baker Mayfield to be the 3rd or 4th quarterback selected in this draft. And if he goes number 1, and you got to assume that Darnold's going to go shortly after him, where does that put Rosen, and where does that put Allen, and where does that factor in teams like the Jets? Where does that factor in teams like the Bills? And who is covering the draft right now, so we might get some updated insight from him on what he's hearing from the media. While we're waiting, Ron, who's your pick right now, number 1? Do you think it is Baker Mayfield? Do you think that's smoke?
No, I think it's Darnold. I think Baker Mayfield's gonna drop some, but I don't think he'll drop to Miami. I think Miami's done a good job of throwing up enough smoke that they're really into this guy that Buffalo, Arizona, somebody's gonna run up there and try and grab him if they like him. That's the thing, is that there has to be a team that likes him that didn't already take him. And that's with all these quarterbacks. If you see a quarterback drop, that means there's a lot of guys that just they weren't in love with that guy for whatever reason. And we don't know, which teams really like which quarterbacks. There's lots of rumors, but you really don't know. This is when you find out here in about half an hour.
Yeah, I think the Browns have done a terrific job of creating a lot of uncertainty. And I think, the way these teams approach this draft is you don't have them say, well, we'll just take one of these 3. They're all about the same. I don't think that's typically how it works. I think these teams know who they want for a quarterback of these guys. And with all this uncertainty that Cleveland's creating, I still think it's a very strong possibility that maybe a team like Buffalo is going to just move up to number 1 overall to secure their guy, because Buffalo can't be feeling good right now. If Baker Mayfield goes right away to the Browns and say Sam Darnold then immediately goes to the Giants, which is what I think will happen if Darnold doesn't go number 1, then the Jets have already traded up to number 3, and they obviously are after a quarterback, and so they're going to then proceed to take most likely Allen or Rosen. And that puts Buffalo immediately in a position where there's only one left. And the teams that remain at 4, 5, and 6 that might be willing to trade now know Buffalo is desperate. And they also know the Arizona Cardinals are desperate. And so if those quarterbacks go bang, 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 that's going to, I think, create a situation where one of these teams really give up the farm to desperately try to get up if that's the guy they want is still there. It's been an interesting week because of the flip-flopping. You don't usually see that in the draft. Darnold right now is the only one that hasn't been flying up and down the boards. It's, with Baker Mayfield, you've got an issue with him being about 6 foot tall, which in my mind makes you concerned. How well is he going to see over linemen? How well is he going to get into the passing lanes and not, make mistakes, throwing interceptions? And then Rosen, he has the concussion issue, and I think that's scaring teams a little bit if he's already had a few concussions and he's had a shoulder injury. You don't want to give up all that capital or all those high picks to take Rosen, and so you kind of see him, as of the last 2 days, suddenly falling to maybe to the Dolphins or even 15 back to the Cardinals because the team's worried about the injury risk. And now you've got this Twitter stuff going on with Allen, which some people think he's going to fall. And so the way these guys are sliding around on the board makes it very interesting. I do think you're going to definitely see one of these teams is going to move up. It's got to be Buffalo or the Cardinals. And even though Buffalo has the draft capital, I feel like the Cardinals are the most desperate team right now in the league. I just can't imagine they want to, as a coaching staff, feel good about going into the draft with Sam Bradford as your starter, and you can't really sell tickets to your fan base with Sam Bradford as your starter. So they've got to be looking for a quarterback, even if it is Lamar Jackson or Mason Rudolph at 15. The Cardinals, in my mind, are the only team that have to get a quarterback in this first round. And the other teams that want them, but in reality, the Jets could roll with Teddy Bridgewater if they had to. Buffalo can roll with McCarron if they have to. And even the Browns can roll with Tyrod Taylor if they have to. They do have starting quarterbacks lined up for this season. You just know they want the quarterback of the future, but I do see the Cardinals as the only team in this draft that does not have their starting quarterback on opening day on their team right now.
Yeah, it's true. I think really the biggest question is, what do the Giants do at 2? If the Giants go quarterback at 2, like you were talking about, and we see quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, I honestly think you could see 5 quarterbacks go before it gets to Miami. And I think that's what Miami's really been wanting. That's my opinion, and I know that's an unpopular opinion. I think Miami has been throwing up so much smoke and mirrors about wanting a quarterback, hoping that 5 quarterbacks could possibly go before them pushing some superior defensive talent their way. I could be completely wrong, but it's going to depend on what the Giants do. If the Giants don't take quarterback, I think that it's not likely we're going to see 5 go before Miami. But if they do and it goes bang, 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 there's just 2 left, all the way from 4 to 10. Everyone's scared Miami's going to take a quarterback. Everyone's scared that Buffalo will do it afterwards if there's still one left. I think you're going to see teams jump up. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think if it depending on what boat you're in, and it's a very polarized boat right now for the Miami fan base, is if you want the best defensive player available, you want to see the quarterbacks go first 3 picks, because it does start to create some desperation potentially in a team like Buffalo or Arizona, who may decide that, what happens if the Broncos decide to grab a Josh Rosen or a Josh Allen and now 4 of them are gone. Suddenly a team may decide we're just going to make the move and try to go get, Lamar, who's it? Oh, Mason Rudolph. I'm sorry. I was thinking,
Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I was thinking. Right. Yeah, but I was thinking of Mason Rudolph versus Lamar Jackson. I'm not quite sure where those 2 quarterbacks are falling on the board, but I think some teams may move up for Lamar Jackson's and some team may move up for Mason Rudolph. And I know neither one of those guys are projecting in the top 10 picks, Ryan, but I think you're exactly right with what you're saying. If the first 4 quarterbacks go fairly quickly, then the desperation does start to set in for a team to move up. And it even could impact Miami in the sense that, if Arizona doesn't get up in there and 4 quarterbacks are gone, if Arizona has decided they need to get Mason Rudolph or Lamar Jackson and they're getting nervous, they may want to trade up with Miami. And that could become a very appealing situation for Miami to be in. If, let's say they're really targeting somebody like Vita Vea, and they feel pretty good they can hit him at 15. Dropping back 4 spots, maybe picking up an extra second and third round or something along those lines is a very appealing move for the Dolphins. Now, if you're in the boat where you want the quarterback, you want Miami to get Baker Mayfield or Josh Rosen, and you're wanting them to make a big move up, you definitely don't want those Giants taking a quarterback, because that's going to substantially, it may be the quarterback they want, number one, and number two is it's going to make it more and more expensive to move up, as those teams at 4, 5, and 6 realize that the desperation is starting to set in. It's kind of like blood in the water in a sense when the quarterbacks go quick for teams that desperately want one. I think you and I, Ron, are probably, I'll ask here, but I think we're in the same boat that I don't believe Miami is in a situation where they need to desperately move up to get a quarterback. It'd be great to get a young quarterback to put behind Tannehill, but I don't see any need for Miami to trade away a number 1 pick next year or several mid-round picks to try to move up a few spots. I think Miami's plan is exactly what you said. I think they want the quarterbacks going early, and they want to get one of these blue-chip defensive players. What's your feeling?
Yeah, that's what I've thought all along. But more importantly, do I not feel they need to? I think the Dolphins themselves don't feel they need to. And that's where I always try and judge what I think will happen on what do I think that the Dolphins themselves, what the organization thinks, regardless of how I feel about it. Because I'm honestly, I know it sounds weird, I'm fine with them taking a quarterback at 11. It doesn't bother me at all. And having Tannehill and a first-round guy to develop and let that play out. I don't think that's bad for the team. I just don't believe that's the route they're wanting to go. Honestly, how do you feel, Chad, what about Denver? They're kind of it's kind of a question mark on what they want to do at 5.
Here's my thinking right now. I think I'm in the boat with you, Ron. If Josh Rosen or somehow Baker Mayfield or even Lamar Jackson, if those guys are on the board at 11 and Miami likes them, I'm all for taking them. I am definitely not for giving up a pile of picks to move up, because this is not a complete football team. They have several needs if they're going to be really competitive as a football team, and they need to fill those through the draft to basically get some depth, on defense and even, a tight end on offense. And if you give up all that just to move up to get a quarterback that's going to be a backup for all intents and purposes, I think they're just not in a position to do that. So with that being said, what I'm thinking right now is I think a lot of people think the Giants might trade out, but if the Giants trade out, it's going to have to be an unbelievable pile of picks for them, because Eli Manning, I want to say, is 37. I might be wrong, give or take a year, but Eli Manning is absolutely at the end of his career right now. He's maybe going to go, in my mind, maybe a couple more years at most. And he really has struggled Eli Manning was being benched last year when coaches were being fired. And as an organization right now, I can't imagine the Giants want to be picking in the top 5 to 10 picks, in the coming years. And if you're not in the top 5 to 10 picks in a given year, you don't get a chance at getting those more surefire, I should say, franchise quarterback. It's hard to get a franchise quarterback for sure in the draft, but if you want a chance at some of the best ones, you need to be in the top 10 picks. And so the Giants have the number 2 overall pick right now. And for them to have a quarterback that's at the end of his career in Eli Manning, and to not have a viable franchise quarterback after him, for them to trade out of the number 2 spot and bypass grabbing a quarterback, to me, is going to take a massive amount of draft capital. And I just don't know if there'll be enough for a team to give up for them to give up that position. As you pass through the Giants, obviously the Browns want a franchise quarterback and either pick 1 or 4. And the Jets obviously have already made a move up to grab a franchise quarterback. When you get to Denver and Indianapolis, it's interesting. Denver has a lot of quarterbacks, but they have their quarterback. And so, they made the move to get Case Keenum, which in my mind was obviously a second choice. I think the Broncos wanted Kirk Cousins and the Vikings wanted Kirk Cousins, and Case Keenum was kind of like the second fiddle of, I guess we can put him in as a starter because he's the best available guy on the market. But I don't feel like John Elway feels exactly like, this is my guy. I'm ready to just go in on Case Keenum. I don't know how he feels about Paxton Lynch. I mean, they just drafted Paxton Lynch recently, and so for Denver to bring on another quarterback with Paxton Lynch and with Case Keenum, I don't think that's going to happen. In particular, if 2 or 3 quarterbacks are already off the board, that means that Denver is going to have a very good player, whether it's Quentin Nelson, you got the best offensive lineman in the draft, or whether it's Chubb, you're getting the best edge rusher in the draft, or Fitzpatrick, you're getting one of the better safeties in the draft. Ward's probably the best corner in the. I mean, so the Denver is going to have their pick at really one of the.
Jonathan, I want to depart him. He's like 30 something. He's just an overseer.
Zig couldn't believe it. He was like, what's his? Am I on?
Good about Andrew Luck and not having a good plan B behind him. So that the real question is, do the Colts really feel Jacoby Brissett is their plan B behind Andrew Luck? If they do, then they're going to be in that same scenario of having a really good blue chip player, or do you trade back for a pile of picks? So that's where I'm at. I don't see Denver or Indianapolis going for a quarterback unless there's some shockers in the first 3 picks. If the Giants suddenly take Barkley and the Jets stun somebody and take Chubb or something, and you've got, maybe what the Broncos have is their best rated quarterback in the draft on the board still, maybe that'll change their mind. But I think one way or the other, Ron, because of the demand for those quarterbacks, either the Giants are taking one and the Jets are taking one, or they're trading. And the Jets, I think, are obviously taking one because they traded, but the Giants are either taking a quarterback or trading out. I don't think they're going to sit at 2 and take a non-quarterback.
Okay, so remember last time we did this, I would throw lots of fun stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And I got a couple right, but of course I was lucky. Do you remember this, Chad?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
throw
okay,
it at the wall.
I got a couple fun things. Okay, first I want to set some precedent. If the Cleveland Browns at number 1 don't take a quarterback, either they must like 3 quarterbacks equally, right? If they don't take a quarterback at 1, that means they like 3 guys equally. They're fine with whoever they get left over if they decide they're going to take a non-quarterback at number 1. So I would say that. What if Cleveland wanted to go completely draft day and trade their number 4 pick to the Giants for the number 2 and take a quarterback and Barkley, so they can get they get their running back and their quarterback, and then the Giants come down from 2 to 4? They could still take a quarterback or still likely get a really good defensive player. Probably in that scenario, they'd still get likely, unless Cleveland was going to take Chubb, they'd still likely get the best defensive player in the draft and move down and pick. I know it sounds nuts, but what would keep Cleveland from doing that? I mean, they've got so much draft capital. They could really set themselves. They could make that trade right now. They don't have to wait for the draft for that trade if they wanted to do that. I know it sounds nuts and it's crazy, but I just thought I'd throw it out there as some random possibility as to maybe why it's 10 minutes till the draft and we still don't know who Cleveland's taking at 1.
Well, I'll tell you what, Ron, as I'm watching Hugh Jackson with a big grin on his face on NFL Network right now, I said this about a month ago with you, and this is what makes sense to me. I haven't heard this anywhere, but my opinion is the Cleveland Browns want Lamar Jackson as their quarterback. And it wouldn't shock me at all to see the Cleveland Browns either trade the number 1 to Buffalo and then take Barkley or Chubb at 4, or they're going to trade the 4 to Buffalo and trade back to 12, and they're going to take a non-quarterback number 1 overall. And if they do that, it would be Barkley or it would be Chubb. Those would be the 2 players they would do that for. So the reason I think that is, one is Lamar Jackson fits exactly what Cleveland's doing right now, and I don't know that any other quarterbacks do. If you're looking at something to throw the stick, I believe that Cleveland would be really happy to put Lamar Jackson behind Tyrod Taylor with their current offense.
I love it, man. We both got these just kind of a little bit off the wall ideas of what Cleveland could do. I mean, they may just stay around, pick quarterback at 1, and go with Chubb or somebody at 4. Who knows? And go just classic. but they could go and do something. They have so much draft capital. They have 1 and 4. You know what I mean? They have that first overall pick. They can take the best player they feel for them. No one can stop them from doing that. They just have a lot of ability to do something special and different. So and you kind of look at that a little bit differently as I look at that, but you're more geared on. You're thinking they like Lamar Jackson, and I'm thinking maybe they just want to try and get their quarterback and the best other player in this draft, whether that be Chubb or Barkley. Probably I would think they do Barkley, get the quarterback, get the running back right in the same shot, man.
Yeah,
draft day.
I agree. I think we have Lewis is calling in. Lewis is right now with members of the media, so we'll see if we're hearing anything on the rumor mill from him. Can you hear me, Lewis? Oh, maybe not. Maybe not. Okay, he must not be able to get voice through. So, yeah, it looks like it. So, yeah. Anyway, Ron. I don't know. It's a tough call. Cleveland has all the options. Right
Hello.
now. Hey, there he is. Hey, Lewis. How's it going? Can you hear us, Lewis? He must not be able to hear us.
This is great radio, guys.
I know. Technical difficulties at its finest.
It's live podcasting without a net. Oh boy.
So yeah. Anyway, you're right, Ron. Right now with Cleveland, not to leave out, they've got the high picks in the second round. So Cleveland has all kinds of options. And if you want to throw out the most crazy scenario right now would be Cleveland has the capability, if they want to, they can draft a quarterback in the first overall pick and the fourth overall pick. Now that would turn the draft upside down if Cleveland takes two quarterbacks in the first 4 picks. It sounds a little wild, but I mean, if you're going a little crazy, if you secure the other quarterback, what does that do to the teams that desperately wanted the quarterback? If you're holding that quarterback and it's a situation where a team was planning on getting him, like Buffalo, are you getting more out of Buffalo when you've actually drafted him? Or are you getting less? Or maybe if you're Cleveland, you're like, you know what? Our number one priority is to get our franchise quarterback. So we're going to take 2, and we'll worry about trading the other one off later on in the season or maybe next year.
It's like a fantasy football move right there.
Yeah.
I still can't believe it's 6 minutes left and we still have no clue. I mean, I don't recall in this day and age. I mean, it used to happen a long time ago before the new CBA because there was that whole contract negotiation issue that we had with the rookies. And so that held up knowing who the first overall pick was many times. But ever since the CBA and we have the rookie salary cap thing, it's hard to believe we still don't know who this first overall pick is. This feels like if maybe Cleveland has, are they taking calls for that pick? Is that why we don't know who it is?
I think they are. I really think right now there's bidding war is going to be between the Cardinals and Buffalo for sure, and maybe even another team. I mean, the Patriots are even in play right now. I mean, they need the quarterback of the future right now, and they've got 2 number 1 picks, and so I think there's probably multiple teams talking to him still for number 1 overall.
Hello.
Hey, Lois, how's it going?
What's up, man?
Okay, much better. Sheesh. So I've been struggling to get on so far. It's been like my sound card went out. I was like, oh, okay, great.
Sound card? Is this like 1999? What's going on there? No, I'm just kidding, man.
I don't. It's ridiculous. I hate it, but it is what it is, All right, so what's going on?
You tell us. You're there, man. What's going on?
Well, right now everybody's getting ready to head back into the auditorium and wait because the draft is going to start in about 4 minutes, 35 seconds. So just for the record, so here's the talk going on. The consensus is that the Dolphins are going to stand pat, and that actually what many people are believing is that it's going to be, if he's there, Roquan Smith. What I can also tell you is that nobody here actually believes that Josh Rosen is going to be the pick, or any quarterback for that matter. So for anybody hoping for that, that's definitely not something that anybody's thinking about over here. But again, we're just members of the media, so we don't know the inner workings of the draft board or anything like that.
Okay. So basically, what you're hearing is that it doesn't sound likely that Miami is looking to aggressively move up at this time.
No, definitely not. No.
That's great news to me. So I hope you're right, because I feel like there's just 12 really good players in this draft, and so I think if trading up to get a quarterback seems like a lot. I mean, if they take the quarterback, I want him at 11. Otherwise, just take one of those blue chip players. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, well, like I said, I tweeted it out. Is that basically I'm hoping that Minka Fitzpatrick will still be there, but supposedly there are reports out that the Green Bay Packers are going to try and move up aggressively to get on him. So if Fitzpatrick winds up going at 5, that's going to mean that it's going to be a little trickier for the Dolphins moving forward. Now, if Josh Rosen does wind up falling to 11, well, you guys, everybody already knows my stance on the whole quarterback thing, so I kind of don't want to go into full detail on that, but it's going to be interesting. I don't foresee the Dolphins moving up, and it's possible they may move down. It depends on who's on the board, but right now with the whole drama of Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold at number 1, and it's starting to look like it will be Mayfield after all, there's really no telling what's going to happen, because if Mayfield winds up going number 1, the entire picture of the draft might change in one fell swoop, because then everybody else who had Mayfield on their board, like at 3 at least, is going to have to reevaluate their whole stance.
Yeah, I think so too, Louis. I'm hearing the same stuff. And, they talked to Sam Darnold. I watched his interview here about half an hour ago, and he seemed pretty legitimately having no clue. Like, they asked him if he had heard anything, and he just said, I don't have anything to say because I don't know anything. I have no idea right now where I'm going. And so I don't think there's anybody right now that knows what the Cleveland Browns is doing other than the Browns. There isn't a player that already knows he's being drafted, and I think they're still on the phone. So this is going to go right up probably until their time limit's up. I think they're going to be entertaining trade offers.
I just find it hard to believe that Baker Mayfield would be the pick over Sam Darnold. Man, I really struggle with that one. I mean, we're going to find out here in about 2 minutes, but I really struggle with that one.
No, a lot of people like Baker over Sam, man. And it's really, honestly, it's not that hard to picture, simply because, again, Darnold is viewed as the safe pick. He's the most bust-proof, so to speak. But Mayfield's upside is really high, and plus he has that attitude that if you brought it to Cleveland, there would suddenly be this elevated measure of excitement in that area. I don't know what Darnold would bring. I don't really know much about Darnold other than that he's the only one who hasn't technically slid in the draft. It feels like every quarterback at some point in this draft has had this moment of where, he might slide, all except for Darnold. So if we're talking upside, then it's either Rosen or Mayfield for Cleveland. If we're talking safe, then yeah, I'd say Darnold.
Yeah, I agree, Louis. I think I was just talking to this with Ron earlier that it just seems like all the other 3 quarterbacks are all over the board, but Darnold's the one that appears to be staying right up there in the top few picks. And so he does appear to be the safest pick, but I just feel like the way things are playing out right now is Cleveland absolutely is entertaining trading out of that number 1 pick. And it's going to be very interesting if they do, who that's going to be. It would be very, very interesting to me if a team other than the Buffalo Bills or Arizona Cardinals jumped up to number 1, like the Rams and Eagles did that a few years back when they went after Goff and Wentz. And if a team comes out of left field that gives up a huge trade to jump up, and it's not those 2 teams, it's going to create immediate desperation, I think, in Buffalo and Arizona, because then the quarterback's situation has changed. Because if the Browns trade this number 1 overall pick, they're most likely going to take a quarterback at 4 then. And that really might put into motion 4 quarterbacks going in 4 picks.
Well, guys, it's about time for me to get started. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it to you guys. You guys are doing great. I know you are. So I'll try to call in a little bit later after the 11th pick or whenever the Dolphins decide they want to move up or move down. So I'll talk to you guys later.
Okay, sounds good. Take care, Louis.
All right, Chad. So we've had a lot of fun with scenarios. So let's be real. I'm going to ask you 2 questions.
All right.
What do you think Cleveland's really going to do at 1? And what do you think they should do if you were running Cleveland? What would you do right now? And anything goes. Trade, whatever.
Well, from what I know, if I'm Cleveland right now, I'm trading the number 1 overall pick for it. If I'm getting a huge trade offer, I'm trading the number 1 overall pick and I'm taking a quarterback at 4. And the reason I'm doing that is there is not a consensus number 1 quarterback. And so you don't hear anybody saying Josh Rosen is obviously the best or Sam Darnold's obviously the best quarterback. There's no Andrew Luck or Peyton Manning obvious blue chip number 1 quarterback prospect in this draft. And so if you're Cleveland, what is the likelihood differential between Sam Darnold being your franchise quarterback or Josh Rosen or Baker Mayfield or Josh Allen? And one of those 4 guys is available at 4. And there's teams desperate for quarterbacks right now. And so I've considered trading out of there at number 1. And if you're getting something like 2 or 3 number 1 picks, it's almost like if with Cleveland, you just keep these piled up number 1 picks, and every year you've really got the ability to get the best player all the time. And so I don't see a reason for Cleveland to take a quarterback number 1 overall. That's the hardest thing for me if I'm Cleveland. So I trade it.
Okay, so what do you think they're actually going to do?
I think right now my gut feeling is they're going to just take Sam Darnold, but that's my gut feeling. I think there's a whole lot of trade offers coming in right now, and they're still talking, but because you never really get your best offer until the clock starts. But I just feel like they're going to go Sam Darnold anyway, because you're looking at a Cleveland Browns team that's won 1 game in 2 years, and you're looking at a Cleveland Browns team that could have had Carson Wentz and said, "Nah, we'll trade it." And you're looking at a Cleveland Browns team that could have had Deshaun Watson and said, "Nah, we'll trade it." And so I think as a fan base, Cleveland's made some big moves. They've added some talent through free agency. They've picked up Jarvis Landry. I think they're not going to play around, and they're just going to get the number 1 rated quarterback in the draft on their board. And I think that probably is Darnold. I think there's a little risk with Baker Mayfield because of his height, and there's some injury risk with Rosen, and Allen played for a small school. So if I'm Cleveland, I don't overthink it. I take the quarterback that's got a good arm. I take the quarterback that's played for a big college and had success, and I just go ahead and get Sam Darnold.
Yeah, so I agree with you. If I'm going with what I think they will do, I think they're going Sam Darnold. If I'm going with what I think they should do, I think they should take Sam Darnold. I think that's just where they should go with it. And they've missed so many times, and they could miss again, but so many times they've passed on guys. They've traded away the pick, not taking the quarterback. Trading away the pick and not taking a quarterback, that feels like old Cleveland to me, even though I know they got number 4. But I feel like they should just go ahead, take Sam Darnold, don't mess around with it. Or, assuming Sam Darnold's their number 1 on their board, which I'm guessing he probably is. That's how I feel about it. But, hey, I got another question for you. Let's pretend 5 quarterbacks are gone before it gets to Miami, right? So who's Miami going to take in that scenario?
That's a tough call. But if it's me, Fitzpatrick's my number 1 target in the draft. If he's available, I take him. I think 3 safeties is a lot more common in the NFL these days, and he can play cover slot corner as well. He gives them a lot. If Fitzpatrick's gone, I think with the 2 linebackers we have, adding a 3rd linebacker really would improve our defense overall. So I'm taking. If it's me, I'm taking Tremaine Edmonds just because I love the fact he's 255 pounds. He can play any of the linebacker positions. I watched his film. He can cover as well as has a really good burst. He would fill a need with a huge ceiling. If not, I'm completely fine with taking Roquan Smith as well. Instinctually, he looks like you can plug him in on day 1. I go with him. Those are my 3 top targets right now are Tremaine Edmonds, Roquan Smith, and Minka Fitzpatrick. Any of those guys are absolutely fine with me.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm hoping we get one of those guys, one of those 3. I'd take Derwin. What about Derwin James? How do you feel about him?
I'm okay. If Derwin James is there and Fitzpatrick and the 2 top linebackers are gone, I'm okay with Derwin James. He's a great athlete, can do it all. I just don't feel he has the same coverage capability as Fitzpatrick. He's more and I know people will throw that against me. Some people don't agree, and I'm not saying he can't cover. He absolutely can cover. I just feel like he's more of a Rashad Jones type player than he is a center fielder type player, and so I find him the least appealing of those forward defensive players. But I would absolutely be fine with Miami taking Derwin James and putting him out there because he's a great athlete, and him combined with Rashad Jones would be a wicked combination as well.
That was going to be my next question. How do you envision that'll go, the two of them together? If you have James, which I think Derwin James is a real possibility. I think he's been the player that hasn't been talked about a lot, although every player has been talked about a lot because people talk about the draft so much. But he's been the player talked about less than some of the other defensive players. How would you kind of envision those two playing together? What do you think that scheme would look like?
Well, the real question is what are you going to do with T.J. McDonald in that scheme? I think historically, for the last few years, Miami has liked interchangeable safeties. They haven't liked a strong safety and a free safety, so to speak. They liked moving both safeties up and back. So I think with Derwin James and Rashad Jones, putting them two together, you would have a tremendous amount of flexibility because they both they're just both tremendous athletes. If you want to bring one up or drop one back, they're both capable of doing that. And so I think probably what you would see is rather than Miami playing a lot of three linebacker sets, you would see a lot more three safety sets, which is great if you have teams that are more pass heavy. If it's teams that are going to come in and just try to pound the football, then the only bad side of that is you're putting one of those three on the bench, basically. So, which is true of either safety pick. But I do feel like in today's NFL, you do need three capable safeties. That's just the reality of the way the game is.
And you need three capable safeties and you need three capable cornerbacks, which we appear to have possibly three capable cornerbacks. Yeah, but we definitely don't have three capable safeties. We're not even sure about McDonald at this point. I mean, let's face it. It was tough. He didn't play for half a year. So I'm going to give him that. I'm going to give him that at least as a little bit of a crutch that he sat there for 9 weeks, and didn't play.
Yeah, it's hard to say. When you miss half of a season, it was his first year in the team within the defense. Historically, he's been a pretty good player. He's definitely much more suited as a heavy hitter, strong safety. I don't think you're going to want to be putting a lot of T.J. McDonald in one-on-one situations with receivers, but capable of covering a tight end for you, and definitely capable of providing very good run support if you move him up in that position. So the theme of this year that Gase has been doing is depth. We've got 4 capable defensive ends right now. They're not always going to be all 4 on the field, and I'm completely fine having 3 capable safeties right now and not having them all on the field. So I agree with you. If Denzel Ward is there at 11, your guys are gone, and you take the top corner, I'm fine with that. But I thought Tankersley showed pretty good skills yesterday. This last season, I thought Tankersley looked pretty good for a rookie. So you get him in year 2. I think he's got all the height and speed combinations to succeed at that level. The Dolphins should know where Tony Lippett's at. If Tony Lippett is on pace to make a full recovery, I don't feel like you're in a situation where you need to push that hard for a corner. Not this early in the draft. Miami will probably be much better suited to hopefully find a value pick like a Bobby McCain or a Tankersley sort of pick maybe in the 4th round.
Okay. So where I'm kind of going with some of these questions, and I'm going to continue, is taking players that are outside of Fitzpatrick, Edmonds, and Smith, which is, I know, where we've been really going a lot. Those have been really the 3 big that everybody wants. And of course, there's Vita V. We've talked about him, but I think if enough quarterbacks go, we probably won't end up with him because we'll have a more talented player there. What if somehow, and I know Quentin Nelson is really, he's rated high, but he's a guard. Couldn't you see him being there at 11? Especially even in a draft that where not a lot of the quarterbacks go, but we could still have Nelson gone there because a lot of the good defensive talent's all gone. What do you think of that pick for Miami?
Obviously it's not a need pick, but you're looking at the best interior lineman in the draft, almost as sure thing as you can get, and so if that's the case, then you go ahead and you take him, and and so I look at it like we'll have a very good offensive line, and we'll just have to fill in a linebacker and tight end in the second and third round, and you go from there. So I definitely, what I don't do, which I saw people throw on Twitter, is I don't take a third or fourth rated linebacker at number 11 and let somebody like Quentin Nelson go, because he's just, you take one of these top 12 players, you don't take a need pick at 11. If Miami decides their need is so great, you trade out of there. No matter what you get, you just trade out of that pick.
What about Mike? Is it McGlinchey? I always pronounce
offensive tackle.
Yeah.
No, I'm not big on it. Not at 11. He's been a kind of a late mover up the chart. He's probably the number 1 rated offensive tackle. And in every draft, there are positions that are absolutely more viable positions, and offensive tackles are huge. Not both figuratively and literally, but getting an offensive tackle is usually a first-round priority for teams, and so he's the top offensive tackle in the draft. And it's hard, just like with a quarterback, it's hard to succeed in this league if you have poor tackle play. So I understand why he's up there on the value chart, but for Miami, you've kept Jawan James, you've got your franchise left tackle right now in Laramie Tunsil, and you've locked up Sam Young, and not to mention Jesse Davis could play some right tackle. And so they've got 4 tackles essentially on their roster right now. So I don't see him as a blue chip talent at tackle right now, and I don't see him as a need priority for the Dolphins. So I think it would be a reach to grab him at 11, and I think the fan base wouldn't be very thrilled either.
No, definitely not. And it's because it's just not an exciting pick, and that's people want exciting picks. It's so strange, though, because usually every draft you have a tackle or two that's like breaking top 5. Sometimes, best or second, third best player in the draft, a couple of them. And they're really good tackles. But this year, for whatever reason, I mean, you've got the number 1 ranked offensive lineman as a guard. I mean, when's the last time you could remember that?
I can't remember that. The highest rated guards I ever remember were Chance Womack, I want to say, and I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Cooper, where they were two high first round guards. The reality is the way the guard position's played in the NFL is, you don't need guys that are so nimble, sometimes. And so, or you take lighter guys that move, or you take heavier guys that road grade, and you can usually get away with getting those picks. It's just not a value pick, but Quentin Nelson is pretty special in that regard. And so he's probably, maybe with Chubb being the second one with him, it's probably as surefire a player as you can get that you can plug in right away that may be a Pro Bowl literally on day 1. Would be what you get with Quentin Nelson.
Interesting. What about trade down scenarios? You mentioned, I think, trading down a little bit to Arizona and getting vis-a-vis. What about what about trading down deeper and getting some other type players? What about like a tight end, like late in the first round, things like that? How do you feel about those scenarios? Obviously, it's going to depend on, what did we get for trading? If somebody's trading up to us to get a quarterback, it's obviously we're probably going to get more for that trade than if they're trading for a non-quarterback player. But could you see Miami do that? Would you want them to do that, or is there only so low you'd like to go and not miss on some of this really good talent at 11?
That's a tough call. I think there's 11 or 12 very good players in this draft, and so if you're going to trade way back, I would minimum, if Miami's going to trade back more than 3 or 4 picks, if you're going to do that, I would need to get a first-round pick in next year's draft. And
it looks like the pick is in.
Oh, all right.
We're almost there.
So Cleveland is picked then, so there's no trade.
Yeah, it appears that way. Yeah.
This pick's going to set the stage of the draft. So
somebody on Twitter just said trade down. Oh, they were responding. I did a poll. Baker Mayfield or Minka Fitzpatrick. Like, if that's the only two, that's it. You only got those two to choose from, and Mayfield won 57% over Fitzpatrick, which I wholly disagree with, but that's okay. And it's not even because it's Mayfield. It's just because, Minka Fitzpatrick is just special. And these quarterbacks are crapshoots. I don't think Fitzpatrick is a crapshoot.
No, Fitzpatrick's he's a very good player. I've researched it, and he's extremely smart too. So I mean, he would just be an immediate, tremendous player to put in. He'd be one of those play 95% of the downs in the defensive backfield somewhere type of players.
I'm trying to figure out on Twitter because there's always these guys that they know the picks before we know the picks. I wonder maybe you think Adam was it Sheffield? What's his name? Schefter? Adam Schefter. I can't even say people's names. I'm trying to figure out if anybody knows ahead of time, but I guess we're about to find out.
Yeah, absolutely. So Paul Tagliabue is announcing the pick right now. He's got to do his introduction to the draft. I don't have volume on right now, so I'm assuming he's getting booed.
Yeah, wait, I'll turn it up a little. Yeah, no, I don't know. It was kind of cheers and boo. I think all the Cleveland fans are really, really pumping it up. Oh, they took Baker Mayfield, man. Wow, that really surprises me. I can't believe that, man. See, Cleveland at it again. This is why Cleveland stays Cleveland, brother. That's just my opinion on it. This is why Cleveland stays Cleveland.
Well, this is the hit or miss. Baker Mayfield's the most dynamic quarterback of the ones in the draft. He has potential to be special, but I don't. It just concerns me with shorter quarterbacks. I know there's guys like Drew Brees, and Russell Wilson, but in reality, Drew Brees is obviously very special. But even Russell Wilson, he's doing all right. But when Russell Wilson was doing good, the Seattle Seahawks were stacked as a football team. They had a tremendous offensive line. They had a tremendous defense. And so I'm just along that mindset. When you are playing pocket quarterbacks, it's hard to see when you're 6 foot tall and you have 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" tackles. So to take Baker Mayfield number 1 overall over guys like Rosen and Darnold is really shocking to me. But this really turns the draft because I believe the Giants are thinking like we are. And if the Giants now getting Darnold, that's a very difficult pass for the Giants because to me he's the safest quarterback in the draft right now is Darnold. So
this plays nice for Miami because of that.
Oh yeah.
I think you're right. And I think it's going to be really hard for either, like you said, Giants to pass on Darnold or somebody to maybe trade up and go ahead and take Darnold. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be, it's one of those two scenarios are likely to play out, which is perfect because the Jets are taking a quarterback.
Yeah, the Jets aren't going to trade up. The Jets are going to sit still. The Jets, I think, are maybe, unless they were really targeting Baker Mayfield, I think the Jets are probably happy because you can – the only two quarterbacks I feel like you can start on opening day in this draft are Rosen and Darnold. And so the Jets may have the shot now to have a quarterback they can start on opening day if they want. But, yeah, that I really thought that was smoke. I thought the Browns were going to go Darnold, but like I said, right now the situation is these top 4 quarterbacks in the draft. There is no consensus, and so this is definitely a surprise though because this really started coming out just the last 2 or 3 days. That it looked like Cleveland. It feels to me around like this was a flip flop. Like Cleveland, after reviewing everything, decided to jump over to get Baker Mayfield.
Which again is Cleveland being Cleveland. I mean, maybe that's not the case. Maybe this is who they wanted. I mean, these guys evaluate all the quarterbacks they're all professionals. I mean, but the people that were running the organization before were supposedly professionals too and made tons of horrible decisions. I'll at least give them credit for not being completely stupid and going ahead and say, no, we'll wait till 4 and take a quarterback or not doing it at all or something. At least they went ahead and took a quarterback at 1. So I'm going to at least give them credit for that. I don't agree that they took the best quarterback in this draft personally. But because we were even talking that maybe if one of these 4 or 5 guys were going to fall, like if there was going to be a dude that drops, it was going to be Baker Mayfield. And he went number 1 overall. So the fact that they waited though, but here's the thing, the fact that they waited so long and we didn't know ahead of time shows you they probably weren't 100% sold on the pick as an organization. There was probably some internal struggle, number 1. Number 2, they were probably taking offers for that pick like we talked about, which means, again, they are not 100% sold on that. So you can't sit here and tell me they took that and they were like running to the podium for Baker Mayfield because they weren't. Obviously, they weren't. They limped slowly to the podium begrudgingly and took the guy that like 3 out of 5 of them that make the decision decided to go with. You know what I mean? That's likely the decision that they went with here. But we're going to see how it works out, man.
Oh, the number 2 pick is in. The Giants have picked already. So
wow, that was really quick.
I think the Giants are immediately taking Darnold. I think they're ecstatic. What a good quarterback to put in with Eli Manning. Same style of quarterback. I am stunned if this pick is not Sam Darnold. The only other real possibility is Barkley here.
Barkley, yeah.
I don't think that with the Giants picking that quickly, that means they're not even entertaining trade talks, which tells me that if you're looking at Barkley, you're entertaining trade talks. You don't use the number 2 overall pick in the draft quickly on a running back if you could get a pile of picks. So this is them saying we're grabbing that quarterback right now.
Whoever it is, they ran to the podium for. So
exactly, that's got to be Sam Darnold. I mean, it's Barkley. Wow. Shows you what I know.
Shows you what we know, man. We should just hang up now.
I think this
doesn't play well for Miami. This is, I'll be
honest. No, it doesn't change much because the teams that are quarterback needy are still there, and so
it's true. But we were hoping the Giants would either take quarterback or trade out. So now you're going to see if 4 or 5 quarterbacks are gone before Miami, it's going to take some multiple trades to make that happen. And multiple trades don't always happen. They can, but they don't always happen.
Well, I think the team that's ecstatic right now has to be the Jets. I mean, they have their choice now of Allen, Rosen, or Darnold. And so to me, this is a bad move for the Giants. Don't get me wrong. Barkley is by far the best running back in this draft from his combine to his game film and what he can do. But that is the most injured position in the NFL. Running backs have the shortest shelf life. And right now with an aging quarterback, for them to go running back and pass on getting the franchise quarterback, that just seems to me like, wow, that's
how often do the Giants get up here where they can draft the maybe the best quarterback in the draft? I mean, how often do they get that opportunity?
That's my whole point on why you can't. You don't have to give up any trades to move up. You can just take that franchise quarterback right here. And so
they went running back. I mean, he's a special running back, man. There's no doubt about it. But they went running back in a draft littered with good running backs.
Yeah.
So, exactly. Are you willing to bet the number 2 overall pick overtaking a quarterback when Eli Manning is this old and played that bad? That Barkley is definitely that much hands down, above and beyond better than all the other running backs when it's all said and done in the next 2-3 years in this draft? I'll bet not.
Not in a position
that's an awful risk right there. They must have not really liked the quarterbacks, or they never intended on taking quarterback, period, in a story. That was just never their thought. They were going to be like, if Cleveland, it's Chubb, it's Barkley, and we're going to take whoever Cleveland doesn't take, unless they go quarterback, which obviously they did. Man, I got to be honest with you. I'm not a fan so far of the selections of these first 2 teams. And I'm not a fan of Darnold ending up in the AFC East with the Jets either. I would have rather seen, I know everyone thinks I'm nuts, but I'd rather seen Baker Mayfield do it.
Yeah, I mean, who knows right now what the Jets are going to do? I mean, maybe they're going Allen. And so you just don't know where these guys are ranked. I can't imagine passing on a Darnold right now. But Allen has maybe more physical, his arm strength, he's big. But you're talking about a small school guy. I'm all for them taking an Allen right here because it's really an up in the air thing if he's going to progress to the next level.
Do you feel like the whole tweet scandal with Allen? Do you think that was? Do you think that is actually going to drop him? That could actually keep the Jets right here from taking Allen if that's their man to begin with, which I think they're probably maybe surprised at this point that Sam Darnold's still sitting there.
I'm guessing the Jets are in reactive mode right now because they probably did not expect Darnold to be there. I had to think they're thinking he's going in 1 or 2. So I don't think it's. I mean, this is not something that he just did. So it's very alarming Tunsil-like where this is all getting thrown out right at the draft with the design to make him drop. So if he's their guy, to me the bigger question really, Ron, was Josh Allen the number 1 pick for the Browns, and did that tweet make them jump to Baker Mayfield instead? That's a great
question. That's one we may get a glimpse in, but I don't know if we'll ever know for sure. Here's the important part. All these teams, like the Jets right now with Darnold, they're crazy at number 3 if they didn't do their due diligence on every single player that they could possibly end up with in this You know what I mean? They're nuts if they didn't really do their diligence with Sam Darnold, which I'll bet they did. But Miami was smart enough. They even had down what we were at 12 2 years ago when we took Laramie Tunsil, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that we did our due diligence on that guy, even though we thought he might go number 1 overall. We had done our homework on him and scouted him as if there was a great chance he might fall to us, because you never know what happens. So I'm thinking these other teams have done the same with all the. I like to think they're all professionals. I like to pretend anyway that they're all professionals and they've done their due diligence with Darnold, whether they like him or they don't. Whether it be the Jets, be Denver, and now you got Denver sitting there. Let's say Darnold's the pick right here. You got Denver sitting there with Rosen, with Allen. What do you think, man? They could still end up going quarterback.
Well, the real question right now is. Where are these quarterbacks rated really? And so, every draft, the quarterbacks get overrated. That's a common thing. And so right now, my gut feeling right now is Rosen's not rated as high as people might think he is. So I don't believe the Jets are going Rosen here because of his injury history. So I think right now the Jets are trying to figure out how in the hell all three of them are on the board right now, and so they've just picked. But if you're planning on saying let's take Allen because we know our number one guy Darnold's gone, and suddenly Darnold's there, they probably had to have an internal discussion about who do we take now? Because we've done all this work and we've been set on taking Josh Allen, we've been set on maybe taking Baker Mayfield, but that it was Darnold that was there, and so they've got to decide.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously they have a board, and they've only crossed off 2 people off that, and whether those 2 people were under or over, who's still sitting there, their number 1 spot, we'll have no clue.
No.
we at least won't know till after the draft anyway.
Every team claims the guy they picked was who they were targeting.
This is true. This is true. What quarterback makes the most sense for the Jets? Really, when you think about their coach, you think about their staff, their team, their talent. Who do you like for them?
You have a huge unknown with Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy Bridgewater doesn't have that much experience, and he's had a major, major injury. And so I don't know if Teddy Bridgewater is even back. I mean, just because he's back and playing, is he? I mean, he hasn't taken a shot on his knee or had to make a bunch of hard cuts. And so is Teddy Bridgewater even back? And McNown's, he's at the end of his career. So the Jets need somebody they can play, like somebody they can start. That's what I think. And so I think you got to go Darnold or Rosen if you're the Jets in this situation.
Yeah, man, we're about to see.
There you go. Sam Darnold.
There you go. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sure the Jets probably didn't have to think real hard about it, but were likely surprised he was there, I imagine.
Yeah, I think the Jets were looking at Allen or Mayfield. Just because that's the way the drafts have been mocking for months is Darnold's going to the Browns. And so the Jets just probably got the safest quarterback in the draft. He doesn't have any off-the-field concerns. He's played at a big program. He's had success at that level. Has all the skills, and so that's the safest pick they can make. So
now here's where it gets interesting. Does Cleveland decide to trade down to somebody, maybe Arizona, Buffalo, or do they go ahead and take Chubb?
If Cleveland, if you're here, I would want an enormous amount. So because Chubb is probably the best defensive player in this draft that you're going to get your hands on, and so for Cleveland to trade back here, I would want like 2 firsts and a second at least, because Buffalo has 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 thirds, and I would want a big chunk of that if I'm the Browns. Now, this is where it gets really interesting right now, because if you're a Buffalo fan, I know you're excited if you're a Buffalo fan, but let's keep in mind Buffalo has given up their wide receiver talent. Sammy Watkins is gone. Buffalo does not have good wide receivers right now. Buffalo's given up their offensive line. You've got head case Richie Incognito. Is he really going to play or not? And they've traded off one of their starting tackles to get up to where they're at. So if you're Buffalo and you're going to trade off a bunch of them picks now, move up and say take a Josh Allen, you're bringing in a rookie quarterback to a team that has a bad offensive line and a bad wide receiver core right now. And so if you trade off a bunch of your picks, Buffalo has the potential of seriously setting their franchise back. If that quarterback busts and doesn't succeed, and you've traded off all that collateral to go get him, it can be a long 3 or 4 years for the Buffalo Bills if they make the wrong selection at quarterback.
Well, here's the thing for Buffalo, though. They already traded off to get up to 12 just so they could get closer because they need a quarterback. And you sure as heck didn't trade a tackle or get rid of a move on from a wide receiver to go draft a tackle or a wide receiver. I mean, they obviously did it with the hopes of going to get a quarterback. Seems to me like they'll be the most aggressive team trying to get a trade in at some point to get a quarterback. They'll be the most desperate team, and they are known to do this. They've multiple times we've seen them trade up. They traded up the world to go get oh man, now I don't even remember his name.
Watkins and J.P. Lousman
and now there was one other quarterback. I don't remember his name. Starts with an E. Why can't I remember his name? He destroyed us one game, but he was really bad overall. That they traded up to go.
E.J. Manuel.
E.J. Manuel. They traded up the world to get E.J. Manuel. They traded up the world to go get. I mean, they're known to do this, and I'm telling you, they didn't go up to 12 to go take another tackle. To give up a tackle to go get a tackle makes zero sense. Why would you even?
No. The Buffalo Bills aren't trading up to get a tackle.
But they've already traded up. Their intent is to get a quarterback. They're going to jump.
It is.
Man. They're going to try and jump.
Miami wants them to. I'm pretty confident in that. But right now for Buffalo, it's a tough call. It's all about what the cost is to move up because, like I said, they don't have a team to put around a young quarterback right now. But Buffalo is not as desperate as the Cardinals, in my opinion, because Buffalo did get A.J. McCarron, and I believe they're okay starting him if they need to. I believe their plan is A.J. McCarron with Josh Allen behind him and to have Josh Allen be the quarterback of the future. I believe that's their plan. If they're not planning on starting A.J. McCarron, they've got to go hard after Josh Rosen right now because that is all that's left that you can start on opening day is Josh Rosen can insert into a lineup and start. I don't believe Josh Allen you can start on opening day. He played for a small school, and he's got to adjust to the speed of the NFL. And, you can't look at what Carson Wentz did and expect that's how it works now. I mean, what Carson Wentz did is amazing coming from a small school. That's historically extremely uncommon to bring in a quarterback from a small school program and started him right away with success in the NFL.
Well, do you think there's a chance, and we've seen this so many times and we're just not expecting, do you think there's a chance Lamar Jackson is drafted? Somebody moves up and gets Lamar Jackson even over Rosen or Allen? I mean, we're sitting there to say no way, but we've seen these scenarios play out in the NFL multiple times, multiple drafts.
Well, I would initially say no way, but I really think the injury history is concerning for Rosen for some of these teams. This isn't like he had an injury a couple years ago and he's come back from it. I mean, he missed a lot of games with 2 concussions, and he's had concussions and shoulder injuries are big deals for quarterbacks because the NFL is all over this concussion history right now. And if every time you get a concussion, then you become more prone to get another one. And so you got to be worried about that if you're going to invest your whole future into somebody like Rosen. So I don't know right now what Buffalo's plan is. I like the fact that if they trade a whole pile of picks to move up, it could really hurt them in the long run if their quarterback doesn't hit.
I like how you say, I like that. I like it.
Well, it's if I'm like Miami right now, it's not a position I'd like to be in because your offensive line's been severely decimated. Your wide receiver core is severely decimated right now. They need a lot of help there, and their defense is a little bit aged too. I mean, they have some older vets on their defense, and so I'm looking at Buffalo right now. They need to use all those picks to put a team back together, and it's easy to trade all that capital away to make run at your franchise quarterback, but they're not in a position to do it. It's not like Miami right now where you can draft Josh Rosen if you're Miami, or you can draft Lamar Jackson is Miami and just say, hey, look, we're going to worry about getting this guy ready to go in maybe 1 to 2 years. We're starting Ryan Tannehill. We feel pretty good that he's a solid quarterback. You don't have to march him out there right away. Buffalo, I don't know where they're at with that right now. It's a tough situation for them, I think. So they're obviously right now on the phone with the Browns. Buffalo has got to want to move up to get a quarterback. They have to, and I have to imagine the Cardinals are competing with them for this pick aggressively.
Yeah, I mean, if Cleveland was probably taking calls for number 1 overall, they're likely taking calls for number 4 overall. Now it says the pick is in. So let's see if there's a trade or if Cleveland just went ahead and took Chubb.
It's a pick. It's a pick because they announced when there's been a trade made. So it's Cleveland picking. I've got to think this is Chubb if you're the Browns. I don't know who else you would take here. You could take Quentin Nelson, but number 4 overall, I think they're going to take an edge. He's special.
What do you think the chances are a team like Washington or even San Diego wants to draft a quarterback?
The Browns just took Denzel Ward. They just took Denzel Ward.
Wow,
the Browns are always the Browns, aren't they?
Why is Chubb dropping, man? This guy could have been number 1 overall. He's down to 5 now. I say this plays horribly for Miami because now Denver. I don't see Denver passing on Chubb. Of course, we didn't see Cleveland passing on Chubb. I don't see Denver passing on Chubb, man. There's I kind of see some really good talent disappearing now, and instead in some of these quarterbacks.
No. Wait, this is one we wanted. This is a good one. Denzel Ward's the best corner in the draft, and not that he'd be a bad player to get, but Miami. This was one of those players that I didn't want to see at 11 for Miami, and so when Denzel Ward goes right now, you're just ensuring that there's going to be one of those linebackers or safety for when Miami picks. And if there's not, you're going to have your shot at one of those quarterbacks. And so,
but I don't think Miami wants their shot at one of those quarterbacks. They want these quarterbacks gone before it gets to them. And it's not. I don't know that it's looking that way without trades.
Look, if Josh Rosen's on the board and the Cardinals are sitting there, the Cardinals desperately want Josh Rosen. I'm telling you right now because they need to start. I cannot imagine the Cardinals' plan right now is to start Sam Bradford on opening day. That's what their plan is. And so they need a starting quarterback. So, it might work out in the Dolphins' favor that they're going to get a trade and then just drop back to 15 and still get a very good player. But this was a good one. The 2 players I don't really want Miami in a position to take as BPA are Quentin Nelson and Denzel Ward because I really don't want a guard or a corner right now for this team. It's I don't believe it's quite a ways down as a need pick, and so to take the best player available, what good does it do to take a Denzel Ward and put Bobby B. McCain on the bench or put Cordella Tankersley on the bench? I don't know that it helps your team get a lot better.
Yeah, man, we're gonna see how this goes, but I'm nervous that we're gonna see a lot of good defensive talent go, and that these quarterbacks are still gonna be sitting there. It's not what I wanted to happen. I really don't think it's what Miami wanted to happen. But then, what happens when Miami ends up going V or Quentin Nelson, and there's 2 quarterbacks. There's Rosen and Allen sitting there. Man, I don't know if I can take Dolphins Twitter over the next 6 months. I mean, Tannehill better come out and play like Brady, or we're not going to hear the end of it for like 2 years.
I will say that is the worst scenario is if right now pick 11 comes to Miami and both Rosen and Allen are on the board. That means that the defensive talent went before both those quarterbacks. Now, if one of them's there, we're fine now that Denzel Ward has went. Because right now I'm looking at you want to get Fitzpatrick, you want to get Edmonds, you want to get Smith or James. Those are your top 4 targets right now for Miami on defense. And so Chubb is going to go. Chubb is going to go. I guess I don't know what to do if Chubb's there at 11, but I'm going to just be shocked out of my mind if Chubb falls to 11. But
did he do some weed like in a bong mask or something?
No,
and we just missed that while we've been on air.
I think Cleveland's they have a lot of holes, and they let Hayden go, and they just took the best corner. I can't say it's a bad pick by the Browns. It's just surprising because to me Denzel Ward is just another solid cover corner. He's not super special. He's not like a Jalen Ramsey to me. And so to take him 4th overall, for me, I'd be disappointed as a Cleveland fan. I would have rather seen the pick traded out and got some draft capital. Because you could probably have gotten Denzel Ward a little bit later, at least 4 or 5 picks later.
Your cornerbacks are a lot more valuable or a lot more potent. They can do a lot better job when they have someone really good on the defensive line rushing the passer. They're a lot more effective. So to me, if you're trying to fill one of those spots and you're trying to get really sick and have an opportunity to really upgrade one of those positions, I would rather go with defensive end over.
Oh, yeah. I mean, defensive ends that can rush the passer effectively and also shut down the run are valuable commodities. And Chubb is one of those guys. And so Denver right now can be looking at pairing Von Miller with Chubb, and that's a pretty tough combination. They got to be running to the podium right now to get Chubb, in my mind. And they're probably getting the best defensive player, maybe the best player in the draft right now. Chubb is very, very talented.
Yeah, man, you just never know how this stuff's going to play out. I've been surprised by the first pick. I've been surprised by the second pick. You know, the only pick to me that so far has made sense has been the Jets pick. And did it ever pay off for the Jets? They took a shot and moved up to 3, not 2 or 1. They took a shot and moved up to 3, and did it pay off for them or what? Because they got Sam Darnold.
Oh, it paid off definitely for the Jets. I mean, they got a pretty good value there. They basically, unless the Jets were all about Baker Mayfield, this couldn't have went better for them.
No, I agree. I completely agree. And I mean, we don't know what their board looked like, but we're gonna see here. So did I miss it? Oh, the pick's in, but they haven't announced it yet.
Yeah, the pick is not in. It's in, but they haven't announced it.
Okay. All right, it's got to be Chubb, right? It's nobody else. I mean, it's Elway.
I can't imagine the Broncos don't. Chubb is such a good value here. This is a good deal for Miami right now because I guess if it's a good deal if you want Fitzpatrick because Denver was definitely one of the teams that could use Fitzpatrick on their defense. So if this changed their board and they jump to Chubb, it does allow Fitzpatrick to fall because Chubb is not a player the Dolphins really need whatsoever with their defensive end situation right now. They've got so many edge players, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like if Miami's just could end up in a situation where they're drafting a player that in a position that they already have some talent in. But I mean, I hate to say it, is there really a position where you feel like, besides like you said, defensive end, is there another player, a position on this team where you feel like, oh, we couldn't add talent, we couldn't make that unit better, where it wouldn't make sense? It really isn't. Well, many.
You can always add talent, but what does it do for your team? Like if you have holes, like if you desperately need a linebacker, if Miami drafts, say, Calvin Ridley, he's a good player. Is he better than the top 3 receivers on the Dolphins? Probably, but Miami has 4 or 5 good wide receivers, and so what are you actually adding to your team? There goes Chubb right there. So that's a good thing for Miami right there if you're wanting one of the safeties, because Denver was definitely one of the teams mocking to take one of the safeties.
All right, so we got 4 picks left, right? And none of them are quarterback needy teams.
Well, to me, right now, the Colts are the most likely team to trade back because they are a mess right now as a team, and they're in a conference that's suddenly getting very tough. And so, here's the Colts who have dominated the AFC South with having the luxury of having some of the worst teams in the league, and now Jacksonville suddenly for real. The Texans with Deshaun Watson coming back, they're much better, and the Titans have gotten much better. And so the Colts right now are the doormats of the AFC South, in my opinion, and they need help all over the place on that team. And so the best thing for the Colts right now is to try to trade back. And
I could see it with Buffalo. I'm telling you, Buffalo did not jump to 12 to go up a little further and get a quarterback, man.
Buffalo's wanting to move up. So right now, I don't see the Colts not wanting to trade back unless they're just not getting the value offered here. Right now, if I'm running the Colts and I don't get the offer I want, I just take Quentin Nelson. The Colts desperately need a better offensive line, so you don't mess around. You just pick the best interior offensive lineman in the draft and add him to your team.
So that would be good for Miami if they just go ahead and take Quentin Nelson, because then you've got 7, 8, and 9 still to go, and you have Edmonds, Fitzpatrick, Smith, and then who's or Derwin James. It almost guarantees. It guarantees one of those 4 at least will be on the board when it gets to Miami, and they could grab one of those guys. It just Derwin James doesn't excite me as much as the other 3, especially Smith or Fitzpatrick. Those are my top 2.
Colts have picked. There was no trade. no trade.
So they went in quick.
Yeah.
And they're not going quarterback. So.
Well, there is some logic to the Colts taking a quarterback, but I'd be very surprised if they did here. Just with the state of their team, what good does it do to bring in a rookie quarterback when you're both sides of your lines are struggling? So this makes sense in the world. There could be a left field. The Colts could use some receiving talent. Maybe they take a Calvin Ridley, but I think they trade back if that was what they were going for. So.
Have you ever been to the draft?
No, I never have. I've always wanted to, but I've never been there live.
Yeah, me neither. I wonder. I know it's kind of moving around now. I think next year it's Tennessee, Nashville, or it could be the year after.
Yeah, I like that they're doing that. It gives more fans around the country a better opportunity to go to it versus always having it in New York.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to ask you this question. Any chance San Diego wants to draft a quarterback?
Yeah, absolutely. They've been rumored to be looking at one. I just don't know for what the costs are that they're ways back. So for the Chargers to get up there with
they're at 17, right?
Yeah, but that's quite a ways for like if you're drafting right now to drop back to 17 is a definite drop off in talent, and so you would need quite a bit out of the Chargers. And so if you're the Chargers, to give up a bunch of draft capital to move up when you've got Phillip Rivers is pretty hard, I would think. Especially when you've got a team in front of you like the Cardinals. I mean, the Cardinals, I have to think, are on the phone at every pick right now offering to move up because they have to get a quarterback. And so it's just right now the value hasn't been there for the quarterback. So
apparently not even close. I mean, nobody's offered anybody any kind of pick.
Well, the thing that surprises me is they're not waiting. I mean,
no, man, like the Colts, they picked, their pick was in minutes, and so who else was it? The Giants, right? Didn't they go like right in? They didn't even wait. They
there we go. That was what I expected. So the Colts just took Quentin Nelson.
Nice, man. It's not playing off as good as I wanted because I wanted to see more quarterbacks gone, which could still happen. I really think there's a chance that the Bears would be willing to trade out of the pick.
Right now though, Ron, doing the math. We're getting one of the top defenders that fit our needs, or we're getting a quarterback. There's no other way now. So the two players I was most worried about falling to Miami were Denzel Ward and Quentin Nelson. Again, not because they're bad players. I just didn't want to see Miami grabbing a corner or an offensive lineman at pick 11 with where our team's at right now. So the real question now is, all the teams on the board now have their quarterbacks. And so
that's the thing I've been staring at for 3 months. Is that this little run of teams all have quarterbacks. So they're going to just suck up some of this defensive talent. I think the dream right now at this point, I think the chances of Fitzpatrick or Roquan Smith being there at 11 are done. We got to look at Derwin James or Edmonds.
No, there's the trade's still there. So the question is Buffalo fine sitting at 12 and is Arizona fine sitting at 15 to go grab a quarterback? So I think one of those two teams are going to get up before the Dolphins pick.
Yeah, but see, there's only so many teams that need quarterbacks. So, and there's 2 to 3 left. So if you think about it's Buffalo, it's Arizona. Do we really see any other team in this draft right now willing to move up for a quarterback besides Buffalo or Arizona?
Miami will take one at 11 happily if they follow them. The New Orleans Saints, they'll definitely explore trading up. The New England Patriots absolutely will explore trading up.
So there is some competition there because if I'm Buffalo, I'm thinking, well, it's only us in Arizona, so let Arizona go up and we'll take one of the other guys. Because there's 3 left really.
Well, Buffalo's in position for it, and Arizona to be second because for a team like the Saints or Patriots to move up. You're asking a team to move to the back end of the first round, which most teams don't really want to do very badly. So you have to trade a bunch of picks to get up from the back of the draft. But right now, for the Buffalo Bills, 12, now we're at pick 7. So now you're only talking about 5 spots back. And so, for somebody like the Buccaneers, do they want one of those defensive players that badly versus maybe getting a first and a second round out of Buffalo to jump up? Because if Buffalo really wants Rosen or really wants Allen, they got to be worried that the Cardinals are going to pull the trigger on them. So,
what about the Raiders kind of taking wide receiver here? And they always seem to make crazy picks. They love wide receivers. You know what I mean? We've seen him do this a bunch of times.
The Raiders have Gruden now, and so the question is, what is Gruden going to do? He's an offensive guy, and so it wouldn't shock me for them to jump and take Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley now is not a bad value pick for a team that needs a wide receiver where they're at in the draft. And so Roquan Smith and Tremaine Edmonds don't rate that much higher to me than a Calvin Ridley. They rate a lot higher to Miami, but because they need those positions much worse. But it's not shocking at all if Tampa Bay takes Calvin Ridley or the Raiders take Calvin Ridley to add with their number one wide receivers right now. I mean, I'd
love to see that happen.
Yeah, what we need right now is one offensive player to go and we're set. That's where we're at. We need one more, right. or a surprise defensive player to go. That's all we need.
I don't know.
I'm fine with it, Ron. If it just goes the 4 defensive targets we have go the next 4 picks, just sitting at 11 and getting a guy like Rosen or Allen to be your number 2 is a very valuable pick as well. So Miami's in great shape right now. Really, again, the 2 players we wanted off the board were Nelson and Ward because they're just not need positions at all for our team, or not compared to other positions anyway.
Okay, so let's say Miami goes quarterback. I mean, here's the thing. Miami's kind of like damned if you do or damned if you don't. If they don't take a quarterback and there's 1 or 2 sitting there, all you're going to hear about all year.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ron, but
Buffalo did it. I mean, you knew they didn't go up to 12 to sit and wait, so they went ahead and did it and traded with Tampa.
Tampa, yeah.
So they're taking a quarterback. Well, I mean, they didn't trade for any other player.
Yeah, this is a quarterback. This guarantees that Miami's got one of those 4 defensive players, which is what you want.
Yes. Oh, I know I went silent because I was curious.
I believe
whether it's Allen. You think it's Lamar Jackson?
No, I believe this is Allen. I believe that Buffalo's wanted Allen. That's been the reports. I think it's a no-brainer. I think the value finally got there for them to move up. I'm guessing they didn't have to give so much to move from 12 to 7 as you would of the other picks. And so this is in Josh Allen to me.
All right, well, let's see it. So I've been waiting for somebody to go up and trade up.
So if it's Lamar Jackson, it's shocking. It's shocking.
If Buffalo's traded up, that means they were scared that Miami could take a quarterback or somebody else like Arizona or someone could trade up, just like you were saying, which is what we thought. I mean, like I said, they didn't trade up all this capital to go up to 12, not to make sure they didn't get a quarterback. They had to have a quarterback.
Absolutely. They had to be nervous about the Cardinals more than anybody because the Cardinals are only 3 picks behind them at 15. And so the value isn't that much different for a team to drop from 12 or to drop to 15. And so the Buffalo had to be worried that the Cardinals want the same quarterback that they want, whether that's Rosen or Allen. Either way, they had to be nervous that one of those teams were going to hop up and take them.
Now, this is where you see if Miami, have they been playing smoke and mirror? Because to me, if you're Miami, if you really wanted to take a quarterback, why do you scream to the world all day about these quarterbacks you like? I say,
Miami.
So this is where you see if Miami's game of, we love quarterbacks, we love Mayfield, we love Rosen, et cetera, et cetera. Let's see if it pays off and psychs out now Arizona to try and get up here and grab a quarterback before Miami's pick, which to me I thought was their plan from the beginning.
This is interesting because if either quarterback is on the board now with Miami picks, they're in a real situation to pick up draft picks to move back with somebody. Josh Allen. All right, called now. All right, so this gets fun. Everybody is left on the board that we want for Miami. If you've been watching Twitter, anyway, for us Twitter fans. So
the Twitter GMs like us.
Well, of the quarterbacks, Josh Rosen is the best fit for Miami with their situation. Rosen is a smart quarterback. He's a Gase type of quarterback. So if they
I've said that before, dude. I haven't been a big fan of Miami taking a quarterback. I said I was fine with it, but I've said if Rosen is there, I would be thrilled. He was my number 1 that I wanted.
Absolutely. And now, so you either get to me who's the best fit from a quarterback standpoint to add to the Dolphins, or you're getting one of the top 4 defenders we need. They're guaranteed that spot right now.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very interested. Very interested to see what happens at this point. What if the Dolphins went Lamar Jackson? That's not really a Gase pick, right?
You know what I would love? I don't believe this is going to happen because you're right. It's not a Gase pick. I would love to trade 15 back to 15 with Arizona. Let Arizona take Josh Rosen pick up like an extra second, maybe even 2 seconds or a third or whatever you can get out of the Cardinals, and then take Lamar Jackson at 15. That would be fun.
Do you remember? And I've bragged about this pick. We always talk about the pick Deion Jordan. We talk about what a bust he was. But do you remember what a ridiculously good trade, as just the trade itself was in that draft?
Yeah.
Where did we go from was 15 to 3 or 12 to something like that, and all we gave up was 1 second-round pick when we already had another one anyway?
Yeah, it was a steal for the.
What were the Raiders thinking? What were they doing?
Well, I think the Raiders. Actually, the Raiders, I think, were smarter than everybody else on that draft because, the 4 or 5 players that went right in there didn't do that well. I think, was it Flowers? I don't remember who there was some offensive linemen that went in there that didn't do very well. And so maybe the Raiders just realized there's nobody here we want, and we'll take whatever we can get to move back a little ways. So, yeah, I
guess that's one way to look at it. That's definitely one way to look at it. I was also talking on Twitter a little earlier. We were talking about when Brady Quinn thought he was going to Miami for sure, and instead we took Ted Ginn. And as much as we hated that pick and as much as we dogged Ted Ginn, it was still a better pick than Brady Quinn.
I love this play out right now, the more I think about it, Ron, because one, you've got a small school quarterback who you have to worry can actually make the jump to the NFL in Josh Allen. Two, you've got a quarterback now from a media standpoint who people thought were going to fall because they found Twitter from a while back where he was making racist comments on Twitter. Mm-hmm. And you're throwing him in with Richie Incognito now. So what a fun dynamic Buffalo has to work with here now. So I don't know what they gave up, but Buffalo's bringing in, again, a small school rookie quarterback on a team that doesn't have receiver talent or offensive line talent right now. So that's a recipe for disaster in my mind for Buffalo.
Did Miami just cheer in their war room when they saw the trade up? I don't think Miami was targeting Josh Allen. I really don't. Yeah.
I think, like I said, the only 2 quarterbacks I think that really Gase was interested in were Rosen and Mayfield. And so I couldn't be happier right now that the 4 defensive players I want and Rosen are all on the board. All 5 of those players I would be happy with in Miami. Now, what might be difficult is if we get to the 11th overall pick and Miami takes Vita Vea with Fitzpatrick on the board or Edmonds on the board.
I would riot. I would riot, brother.
I know. I'm just saying.
Not with Fitzpatrick or Smith or even Edmonds sitting on the board. I could not accept that pick. I just couldn't. There's no way. You know what? We have shown that you could have one of the best defensive tackles in the game ever, and it is not that big of a difference maker when it comes to the record, when it comes to the scoreboard. Yeah, it just isn't. It's an important position. The trenches are important, but it's just not that big of a difference maker. If it's the pick that makes sense at the time, yes. But a guy like Fitzpatrick, that guy's a difference maker. You know what I mean? A guy like Smith, that guy's a difference maker and fills an extreme need for this team that we've had. To pass on those 2 guys, to go to defensive tackle when you just gave up one of the best. It's just like it's like Buffalo. You didn't just go and give up a tackle to trade up to go draft another tackle. Obviously, they're going after a quarterback, right? When they went up to 12. Same thing with Miami. You didn't just give up, and I know a lot of it was money, but man, we're eating a lot of that money anyway. We didn't just give up one of the best defensive tackles in the draft just to go spend a pick on another defensive tackle. That would make zero sense to me. They did it because they're fine with where they're at. They'll take some June 1st post June 1st cut guy if he's out there, if they feel like they need one more kind of savvy vet on a 1 or 2 year deal, and they're going to go fill a need. And I'm hoping it's going to be Smith or Fitzpatrick if they're not both gone.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so we're gonna see what happens, but yeah, that I don't know how mad you'd be if they took Vita V with Fitzpatrick sitting there.
I wouldn't be happy. I mean, I'm not against Vita V. He's absolutely a great nose tackle type of player, but not where they're at right now.
No, they have too much need. I mean, there's too much need, and yeah, I know they kind of created maybe a hole, but so what do you think the pick is here for the Bears?
Sorry, could you say that one more time, Ron? You cut out.
I'm sorry. What do you think the pick is here for the Bears?
Roquan Smith just went to the Bears, so made a lot of people disappointed. But that's going to happen now. Those are the best players on the board now, are all these players Miami wants. So if you fell in love with one of them, this is where it can get tough. But I am
Edmonds or Fitzpatrick, man. I'm hoping
Fitzpatrick's still my number one player. So I'm completely fine with everything right now. So I really like Tremaine Edmonds. He's special. I liked what I saw of him on film and what he can do. Like I say, all I need to do right now is take Rosen or one of these top defenders and not take Vita V. If we're going to take Vita V, I want to trade back with the Cardinals and take him at 15 and get.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, so if we go from 15 to 11, and they're probably going up there to grab a quarterback. But here's the thing. Who are they jumping over to get a quarterback? If they're going to trade with Miami, and Buffalo's already jumped us to get a quarterback, who is Arizona nervous about jumping over?
If you're Arizona again right now is a situation where their starting quarterback is Sam Bradford, and you got to worry from anybody, whether it's the Dolphins could jump up right now and just take Rosen. I mean, it wouldn't take that much capital. The Saints could jump up. The Patriots could jump up. And so if you're the Cardinals, unless the Cardinals are planning on Lamar Jackson and that's their target, or their target's Mason Rudolph, there's two sides of football around there. You're trying to win the games when you're trying to put your best players out there, and you're also, from the owner's standpoint, you want your team to be exciting and you want people to come to the games. And could you imagine Dolphins Twitter right now if our starting quarterback was Sam Bradford? We think about all the difficulty people have with Ryan Tannehill, who, in my mind is easily in the middle of the pack. I mean, I comfortably say Ryan Tannehill is the 15th best quarterback in the league. Yeah. Could you imagine if it were Sam Bradford, where he's had all the injury issues and he's never really shown anything special? And that's our plan right now. That's our starter coming into the year. And so,
do you think that Arizona might be writing the season off a little? I mean, most teams don't write it off, but you don't think that they might be willing to just last with Sam Bradford for a season and draft quarterback next year if it all goes to crap?
That's an epic throw in the towel if you're already given up before the drafts even happened. So
that's good points. I guess I'm sure most teams' mentalities isn't that way.
Yeah,
even though if it looks that way sometimes.
49ers are up. They're a tough one right now, because right now you've got the Reuben Foster issue for the 49ers, where he hasn't been charged. I saw in reports that the woman that he allegedly hit now is saying that she made it up, which to me means that she realizes that he's going to get cut. And so that's a pretty common thing. He probably offered her money, even something like that. So what happened or didn't happen is unknown at this point. So if you're the 49ers, do you just assume Reuben Foster is going to be good to go, or do you pull the trigger and go get Tremaine Edmonds right here and just fix it right away? So the 49ers did pick, so there was no trade.
So let's say Fitzpatrick and Fitzpatrick and Edmonds are both gone. So, I mean, do you really think? Let's talk about what we think Miami will do, not what we want them to do. I think we want the pick to be Derwin James there. What do you think Miami's gonna do? Let's say they don't take Derwin James. Let's pretend they don't. Who else are they gonna draft then? And let's say they don't take Derwin James and they're not interested in a quarterback. What are they gonna do?
Oh man, I say right now that's a tough call for me, because right now I take Fitzpatrick for sure. If Fitzpatrick's gone, I take Rosen. If Rosen's gone, I take Edmonds. And if Edmonds is gone, you can have a discussion between Derwin James and Vita Vea to me, but I think you just take Derwin James. You take the athlete that can play three safeties for you. You want to keep that capability, and Derwin James is a very, very good athlete. So
could this pick be Ridley here? Maybe wouldn't that be awesome if there's something with that route?
Ridley makes sense for the 49ers. They've got Garoppolo in there. They want to put some weapons with him. It makes sense to go Ridley right here for the 49ers. So, man,
they were given their franchise quarterback for a ham sandwich, if you ask me. A second-round pick. We got A.J. Feely for a second-round pick, bro. I mean, come on. A second-round pick? I still don't understand what the Patriots were thinking there. I just don't get it.
Josh Rosen just was on. It looks really pick. Yeah, the Patriots, despite everything they've done that has always been smart than everybody else, I think that was an enormous mistake on their part. I mean, could you imagine if Garoppolo ends up being really, really good and they could have had him for another decade plus after Brady?
Well, they could have had him, or they could have traded for this pick right here and taken a quarterback and taken a Rosen or something. You know what I mean? If they whoa.
The 49ers just took Mike. They just took the tackle. Mike.
Nice.
So now we're guaranteed Edmonds
or Fitzpatrick if we want him. Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
This could not be falling better for Miami.
I like it. I didn't expect him to be gone in the top 10. I thought, but it was like you said, like it's such a premium position that even though he's not like, super blue chip talented like we usually have each draft, we have at least one of those tackles or more. It's such a premium position. They just got Garoppolo. They want to protect him.
The 49ers are taking the best tackle in the draft. To me, it's a bit of a reach. I think he's probably more. You have a 15th best player in this draft. From looking at the boards, but if you're the 49ers and you need that starting left tackle, I mean, you just got the best one you can possibly get right now. So it's just a neat pick that's a little bit high, but not drastically. I feel completely fine with this if I'm a 49ers because you've got to protect Garoppolo.
I was just thinking that, like, if you're a 49ers fan, you can't really hate this pick right now.
No, not at all.
Definitely not. But I really feel like this should have been New England's pick. I mean, I really feel like you should have shaken down New England at least for one first-round pick for their starting franchise quarterback who they're paying $100 billion to.
Let me give an analogy to this. What the Patriots could have given them. So you had the dynasty of the 49ers and how good they were for all those years with Montana and Rice and those guys. And what happened with the 49ers is they ended up, letting Montana go off to the Chiefs, and they inserted Steve Young, who was, again, an amazing quarterback for years, won Super Bowls. The Patriots could have done that exact same scenario. They could have let Brady go. It seems crazy, but then you start Garoppolo then, and if he's good for the next decade, that would have been brutal for the Dolphins and the rest of the AFC East.
See, the Niners were kind of bailed out in that aspect because Montana got hurt. So Brady never got hurt and gave Garoppolo a chance to come in and kill it. He was gone for those 4 games from the suspension, so that was almost like that situation playing out. But then he got hurt. so it never.
Hey Ron, the Cardinals just jumped up, so this has to be Rosen right here.
So so what I've been saying, what I have been saying for 2 months. Miami was screaming at the top of their lungs that they love quarterbacks to make Buffalo and Arizona do this, to jump ahead of them to go get a quarterback.
That's exactly what they wanted. So now Miami,
what they wanted. So Miami now they have what?
They've got Fitzpatrick, they've got Edmonds, they've got Derwin James. They've got 3 really good defensive players to pick from.
So if they take like V to V or something crazy like that, if you're like Ron, just know I gave up. I closed the computer down. I went to bed.
If I don't even know what to say if Miami takes V to V over Minka Fitzpatrick here. I mean, Fitzpatrick may be the best defensive player in this draft, in my opinion. He's so good.
I'm so excited right now. They better take Fitzpatrick. I'm going to scream if they don't. You know what? If they took Edmonds, I wouldn't totally freak out.
No, I'm okay. It makes sense. Either player's special. For me, Fitzpatrick, you put him in right now, and he's our starting safety for the next decade, Pro Bowl level safety. And so to me, it's just a no-brainer. You get him, and you just roll with it. So the only other crazy left field pick here, other than V to V, would be Lamar Jackson. I don't see Miami doing that, but you just never know.
Again, they didn't scream at the top of their lungs. We wanted. Remember, I kept saying they wanted 5 quarterbacks gone, so they would be sitting in this scenario right here.
I think they did, but I think the offensive tackle going to the 49ers made it easy now because Miami really wanted those 4 quarterbacks going in there to, I think, get one of the 3 players they have to pick from right now. So now you're looking at a situation where they've got their pick. So I run to the podium and take Fitzpatrick right now. I really do.
Yeah, I don't think. Yeah, of course, we're still waiting for the Arizona to come.
They're taking Josh Rosen.
I would assume. I don't think you trade. I don't know what they gave up for this pick, but I assume you don't trade up to go get Fitzpatrick. They could. That could have happened, but
that's not happening.
I think that sounds a little unlikely.
How do you explain to your fan base you could have had Josh Rosen and you're going with Sam Bradford. I mean, I don't even know how you explain that to him. So you're right though, Ron. The Cardinals obviously were worried about the Dolphins here, and so that's it. Either Miami is really smart or really dumb. That's
no, they're not really dumb. I mean, you could say they're really dumb because they should have just shut up and drafted a quarterback. But if no.
I'm saying if they really wanted Rosen, they're dumb. But if they exactly what you want,
or Mayfield or any of those guys,
well, yeah, because they were like crushing on him on the pre-draft process, like, oh my God, we love this guy, and so that screams to me exactly what you're saying is they wanted to create enough scare for these teams that desperately needed quarterbacks to move up, so that these.
It was a brilliant plan if you weren't intending on drafting a quarterback. It was brilliant. I can't. You know what? The funny part is all the pundits fell for it. It was you. I kept watching these drafts, and I kept watching guys that are like, man, I forget these. It's Mel Kiper and the other guy, Todd something from ESPN. Yeah, I watched very, very, very little draft coverage on television. I mostly stuck to Twitter. I know that's not the best draft coverage, but that's where I got mine from. And every now and then I would click on something, and these guys were buying into it, man. They were buying into it so hard that Miami wanted a quarterback at number 11. And I'm sorry, if you think as a Dolphins fan that Miami really was hoping for one of these quarterbacks to fall, then you're nuts, because they would have kept their mouths completely shut. They wanted this to happen. Arizona and Buffalo. These are the two teams that you and I have talked about 40 times from the start of this show till now. Will they jump Miami? Because Miami's been screaming they want a quarterback, so they're trying to, let's find out. When we got to 6, I said, let's find out if the game Miami playing actually works. Do the teams buy it? Do they fall for the BS that Miami was pulling out, that they wanted a quarterback just to push top talent to them? I kept saying it for 2 months. I've been saying it. and it's come to fruition, but it was so obvious to me. The contract of Tannehill, the way they built this offense, and the moves they made this summer did not say we're moving on from Tannehill. It said we're rolling with Tannehill. You know what I mean? Do you feel comfortable about Tannehill and Osweiler? if Tannehill goes out, I don't feel comfortable about Osweiler, but. I believe Miami is still going to get a quarterback. Season's gone in next year. Yeah, in the second, third, fourth round. Maybe tomorrow night they draft a quarterback, and I'm fine with that. I mean, very likely it's good, but it wasn't going to be with this pick. Of course, then watch him draft Lamar Jackson.
That's the only scenario I see is because what Miami did with quarterbacks could also suggest they wanted Lamar Jackson, and so they wanted to push the other quarterbacks to make sure they were above him on the boards, but. Not surprisingly, Arizona took Josh Rosen. So this could not have went better for the Dolphins if you're looking at the board right now, because the best players on the board right now are absolute needs for the Dolphins. So you're getting the perfect situation of blue chip player at a position of need, which is all you could hope for whenever you're up to pick.
We needed defense. We wanted to try and get one of the top defensive players. Only 2 defensive players even have been drafted, and we're at pick 11.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Roquan Smith and Chubb. That's it. Every other defensive talent is sitting there for Miami at 11. This is playing so perfectly for somebody like me that was thinking this is the way it would go out. I was starting to get nervous because I thought it was going to take the Giants taking a quarterback at 2 to make it happen. And when it didn't happen, and then Denver didn't go quarterback, or did they? Who did Denver take? Now I don't remember.
Denver went with Chubb.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Denver went with Chubb. So I'm sorry, it was three defensive players that went there. So I mean, let's see what we do, man. Let's see what we do.
Right now Miami is. They're not running up to the podium. So let me just throw out something. Now that Rosen has went, Lamar Jackson now becomes a threat to get drafted. So if there is a team that really wants Lamar Jackson right now, they're on the clock with every team picking from the rest of the way, because now that the top 4 have went, in my mind right now, Lamar Jackson is the highest rated quarterback on the board still. And so are one of these teams that back there wanting to move up and make a run at Lamar Jackson right now. They are on the phone potentially with the Dolphins. And so do we trade back here, Ron, and grab some picks, especially if it's a close team? that
I don't know, man. Not with Fitzpatrick sitting there. Maybe if Fitzpatrick, Edmonds, and all those guys were gone, and somebody wanted to come up. Fitzpatrick's gone, James is gone, Edmonds gone. Smith is already gone. Maybe if those guys are gone, and you're thinking about Vita V or somebody like that. Okay, maybe we go do that. But I don't think with Fitzpatrick sitting there, it makes me nervous they hadn't already gotten the pick in to begin with. Although I imagine, maybe they're taking calls, but maybe people are calling them for Fitzpatrick.
Oh, they're taking calls right now. To me, this is of those three defensive players, whichever one they have the highest rated, it's a no-brainer to go grab them right now. But again, there's a lot of talent now. And so if you're Miami, what if you move back 3 or 4 spots? You got to look at where it's mocking out. Are those going to be the next 3 players taken? Because there might be teams that don't need those positions. And so if you can fall back a little bit here, this might be an opportunity to still get Fitzpatrick, or maybe you want Lamar Jackson and you're going to just fall back a little bit here. So this is interesting.
Yeah, man. Tampa Bay, they want to improve their defense. Washington likely wants to improve their defense. They got Alex Smith. They've got wide receivers coming out of their ear holes. Green Bay's got their quarterback. Oakland, they traded back. They've got their quarterback. Baltimore, I'm sure, feels pretty confident they got their quarterback. And all those teams have a lot of offensive talent. Every single defensive player would be gone.
Yeah, Miami has picked, so there's no trade.
Oh, okay, good. Come on, man. It's going to be Fitzpatrick, right?
God, I hope so, Ron.
Or Edmonds.
I'm okay with any of the 3, James, Edmonds, or Fitzpatrick. They're all blue chip defensive players. So
do you
any
think
of them.
James is better than Fitzpatrick?
Me?
I don't. I don't.
It depends what you're wanting, but for me, Fitzpatrick, he was my top pick in the whole draft. So of course I want him. But I'm okay with any of those 3. They're all need positions that are very good football players. So I might start crying if it's Vita V. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh, man, I'm going to be so mad. I don't want to curse on Lewis's show. I know he doesn't curse. I'll be so mad. I'll be so mad if this pick is Vita V. Oh, I don't even want to think about it. The pick is already in. I'm getting nervous right now thinking about this.
Well, Miami entertained the call, so they took almost their whole time before they went and put it in. So.
Yeah, they must have. So probably they weren't getting any calls for quarterback.
Yeah, to me, that Fitzpatrick or Edmonds are both great picks here. I like James as well, but any of those 3, like I said, I understand it.
Drum roll, man. Yep. Drum roll. You're like 2 seconds ahead of me too on your feed.
I'm watching NFL. It is Fitzpatrick, baby. Woo!
I knew it. I love it. I was nervous.
And I am grinning right now. That was who I wanted, the top pick. I had him over the quarterbacks. I like him so much. So Miami is getting a elite center field type of defensive back that can play safety. He can play in the slot corner position. He's smart. He can cover. This is the quarterback of your defense right there that just got drafted, people.
Nice. I love it. And pairing him with Jones. I just, you know what I'm saying? I just, you can't fault Miami for this pick. The only thing I think that's gonna.
Listen to this, Ron. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Well, they're showing off Fitzpatrick. 9 interceptions, 4 of them are returned for touchdowns.
Huh? That's pretty crazy. That's crazy. Insane. Yeah, he's a good player, man. He's sick. And you know what? The funny part is I don't watch a lot of college, but I watch a lot of Bama, and I'm stoked with this. I was sitting there thinking like maybe it was going to take 5 quarterbacks gone, but then not only 5 quarterbacks gone, guard and tackle on top of it. 5 quarterbacks, a guard and a tackle, and that just couldn't have played better for Miami. I will call it. Let's just say this. Let's just put it to you this way. If Gase and these guys really were playing smoke and mirrors to get teams to jump ahead of them, absolutely, they won the draft in my mind. They won the draft. Yeah. Because that's phenomenal, and to me, I believe that's what they were doing the whole time. And it's not Monday morning quarterbacking because I've just been saying it. Well, look at TV.
No. This improved the team for this year more than any other player in the draft could. And so, I liked Roquan Smith. I liked Tremaine Edmonds. They would have been good picks for the team as well. But this is the best possible player the Dolphins could have acquired for the situation they have as a team. I just can't say enough how good a pick this is for the Dolphins. I'm probably the most happy I've been from any pick I can remember where they got him. And this is one of those things where Miami was at pick 11. They didn't do anything crazy to give up more draft capital to move up, and they just knew that there was this quarterback craze right now, and they just sat there and took advantage of it. And in my opinion, you're getting one of the top 5 players in this draft in Fitzpatrick.
You are. I mean, definitely one of the top defensive players for sure. So now that the pick is actually in, we don't have to guess anymore who it's going to be. And I would imagine, except for the people that are really, 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 really wanting us to take quarterback and are mad that we didn't get a quarterback, and they may or may not blame Miami for opening their big mouths about it, even though obviously I think they did it on purpose. So now that the pick is in, how do we see this playing out? You got TJ McDonald, you got Fitzpatrick, you got Rashad Jones. You don't think you could see those 3 on the field when it's run situations or it's a run heavy team?
I think
you think you have to sit somebody to play a run heavy team?
Here's what I think. I think you're going to see 3 safety sets. I think that, a lot of people were upset this last year because Kiko Alonso struggled in covering linebackers. I think what people forget is very few linebackers in the NFL can cover today's tight ends in the NFL. And so you can come in, you can play Kiko Alonso with Rakeem McMillan, and you can move TJ McDonald or Rashad Jones, either one of those guys, up tighter in the box, and let them essentially be your linebacker that can cover the tight ends. And so you've got now a chess piece in Fitzpatrick that can cover receivers man-to-man. You have a safety that can cover receivers man-to-man. You can match him up man-to-man on a tight end, and you've got a very, very good cover safety, very good range, very good ball skills. This changes a lot on what Miami can do on defense.
Yeah, no, definitely. And, I think this guy could be our best defensive player in another year or two. I mean, it's hard to say he's better than, Cam Wake right off the bat. We haven't seen him play one snap, but he could be in a couple years our best defensive player.
Oh yeah, I think this year immediately he'll play the majority of snaps on defense. He'll be the primary. I mean, again, this is about as good of a player as you can get from today's. I'm talking about today's NFL. Having a safety that can cover really anybody on the other team's opposing guy man-to-man is amazing. And so he's one of those rare guys that can play safety and corner both. And what a great center fielder for the Dolphins.
Definitely. Now, what teams have we seen been successful playing the 3 safety? I mean, we've talked about a lot. Like, we've seen Rashad Jones have to come down and play like a linebacker because we were so beat up at linebacker, or our linebackers just stunk so bad in years past. We had no choice. So what about when you're doing that as an actual chosen strategy? What teams are out there that have had good defenses that are actually implementing a strategy with like a lot of 3 safety sets?
I honestly couldn't tell you, Ron. I think the better way to say it is not to define it as 3 safeties. I think what you're looking at is a guy that can play safety or defensive back. And so you can move Fitzpatrick around and do matchups with him. And so that's the way I'm looking at it. And most teams in the NFL now run 3 to 4 defensive backs almost all the time. But we've got the luxury now of not putting in maybe a smaller cover corner. We can leave a guy in that can defend the run and cover both in Fitzpatrick.
How far could Edmonds drop down before you could see Miami just giving up a lot to go get him?
It'd have to be a waste. So Miami right now, just like I was saying, the Cardinals had Vita Vea just went, by the way, to Tampa. Yeah. The Cardinals had to move up to get a quarterback. Miami has got to take a tight end in the next 2 or 3 picks. And so trading away draft capital to move up to get Edmonds, I don't know if Miami can afford to move up that far, because if you're moving up to, say, back to the middle of the first round, that's practically the cost of a first-round pick next year. So I don't know if Miami wants to do that or not.
But let's talk about a team that has, Charles Harris, Robert Quinn, Cam Wake, Roquan McMillan back, Trey Edmonds. Jones, Howard, Fitzpatrick, Hankersley, Bobby McCain. I mean, that sounds pretty exciting to me, man. You know what I'm saying? When you talk about, hey, let's just give it up and really get this defense rounded off. I like the sound of that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm just saying it's an expensive move right now.
It's expensive, but I mean, you know what? We've flubbed it at tight end this whole time. And trust me, I've been on this show a few times complaining about, we have only ourselves to blame for where we're at tight end right now because we've refused to draft at that position at anything high at all. Mostly it's been trying to fill in with, old beat up vets or, guys that we drafted in the 6th or 7th round or guys we picked up off the street, whatever. I mean, that's where we've been with that position for a while. And we haven't invested in it. But, man, I don't know. We'll see. Let's see how far Edmonds drops. I'm almost surprised he's at this point. But, obviously, somebody was going to drop considering 5 quarterbacks and 2 offensive linemen went in the first 10 picks.
He's going to be gone within the next 4 or 5 picks. So, he's a special player, so.
Yeah, I bet you a team that would kill for a player like that is Baltimore. I bet you, I could see James or Edmonds going to Baltimore, man. That's just a definite kind of Baltimore pick right there.
Yeah, Baltimore, a tough call right now. They picked up a receiver free agency. Baltimore wouldn't shock me if they take Lamar Jackson. They seem like a team that might do that.
Interesting. Anybody going to trade up to try and get Lamar Jackson, you think, or he's just going to fall to somebody where he falls?
I think right now he is the X factor that's available, so I don't think he's going to fall too much further. Now, most of the blue chip players are now off the board. You still got Derwin James and Tremaine Edmonds, and so I have to think those guys are going really quick here. Vita Vea, is a good. That's not a bad spot for the Redskins. I mean, he is a good player. I'm not against him. I just feel like a 330-pound D tackle is not where you use your 11th overall pick.
Do you see Vita V's full name there? Did you see it on the screen? It's long, unpronounceable. It's like 7 names, and they're all unpronounceable. So I guess we'll just continue to call him Vita V and just roll with that.
I'm fine with that.
I've never seen a name like that at all. It showed his real name. It literally took up like a whole corner of the screen.
I am just sitting here right now and thinking, how many years have Miami been about where the Redskins were at 13 or 14? And how many times have we seen these players that we want go just a pick or 2 before us? And then we're the ones taking the Vita Vea pick right here because he's just the best player on the board at that point. But we just had a high enough in this draft and things fell well enough that we've actually got that top player that fell down. This is nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome, man. I just feel like the one thing that this team's obviously I think what we're missing now on defense really is maybe defensive tackle, maybe, and linebacker. You know what I'm saying? I just we need some more talent at those positions, but especially linebacker. Wouldn't you agree? That's probably the number one hole on defense for us right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, D tackle and linebacker are both arguable. I mean, our linebacking core isn't horrendous. We're getting Rakeem McMillan back. You got to remember that.
Yeah, but I mean, I like McMillan, and he excites me as a piece, but he hasn't played 1 snap yet.
Well, neither is a draft pick. So, but I'm just saying, at least you've got a talented player that's on your team to put along with Alonzo. So, I think Miami needs a linebacker, but this draft is far from. I mean, we've still got Evans, the linebacker from Alabama. We've got who's the Boise State guy? I'm trying to remember his name now. Vander Esch, I want to say. We've got some high-rated linebackers still that we could pick up here. And so, and not to mention Tremaine Edmonds is still on the board, but they're okay right now. And a D tackle, we do need a D tackle, and we need a D tackle like Vita Vea that's big and can occupy blocks because we have 3 D tackles right now that are good at shooting gaps, and we need a guy that can push 2 offensive linemen. And so, to me, you do that in the 3rd or 4th round. You go and you pick up a 330-pound defensive tackle there.
Who do you think has so far, besides Miami, I'm going to say they won based off what I think their strategy was and who they ended up with, that it just their strategy worked. But who do you think besides Miami so far has really kind of like won this draft, or you love their pick, or what have you? I mean, I have one, but I want to hear who yours is first.
I have to think the Jets did.
Yep, exactly what I was going to say. The Jets.
The Jets got, to me, the safest quarterback in the draft. And they moved up to 3, and they jumped up unexpectedly on Buffalo and Carolina before the draft started, and it fell right to them. And so I think Buffalo is going to say Allen was their guy all along, but I just don't know if that was the case or not. I think they may have originally been looking to move up to where the Jets were, and the Jets quickly made that trade and jumped up there before Buffalo could do much. So
it really worked out for the Jets. Oh, Daron Payne. Nice
another
pick.
D tackle off the board. Yeah, good pick for the Redskins there.
Yep. Those guys, Vita V and Daron Payne, definitely the best 2 defensive tackles in the draft. It's interesting, too. We always can see generally, it's like the pundits, the analysts, when they start to put together who are the best players in the draft, really, there's not always a lot of disagreement. Like, all the guys that are going are the guys we expected to go. The first guard was the first guard, the first tackle, Roquan Smith was the first linebacker, first defensive end, all of that. It's always right. It's who wants whom is always what's so argued about. And everyone seems to get wrong every single time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I still, to this day, I can't understand that anybody believes Miami actually had and was intending to target Allen, Rosen, Mayfield. I just don't see what evidence you show me of that they would sit there and want to target a guy, but tell the world how much they love these guys and how much they want a quarterback. It doesn't make sense to me. So, and obviously the way this draft shakes out.
New Orleans just came up on a trade.
Lamar Jackson, or are they going to go get
a lot of people? A lot of people have tied Lamar Jackson to New Orleans.
Interesting.
So this is a very likely possibility for Lamar Jackson right here.
At first I thought we were seeing the Saints pick. So interesting, man. So I think I might have asked you this before. I might have intended to ask you when we got onto another subject. 5 quarterbacks in the first 10 picks. Can we remember when that happened last?
Oh, it was 4, Ron. There were 4 in the first 10 picks.
Oh, you're right.
I don't
quarterbacks
remember.
In the first 10 picks.
I don't know. I think there's only been one draft in history where there's been 6 go in the first round, which has potential to happen in this draft. 4 in the first 10, I don't recall. I mean, the year Tannehill went, he was the 3rd pick in the first 10.
How long did Brees sign another contract for? 2 years? It had to be at least a 2-year deal, right? Or was it longer?
Yeah, I think so. 1 or 2 years at the most. I mean, Brees is he 39, 40?
Yeah, he's definitely up there. So what's New England going to do? I mean, Brady's even saying that he doesn't know if he's coming back with this year, which I don't believe any of us believe that. Could you see Brady kind of helping New England along by stating that ahead of the draft? Hey, I don't know if I'm coming back, to give New England cover to draft a quarterback in the first round. That's their cover. That's how they do it, and they don't face negative PR from Boston fans. Is by Brady said he doesn't know, so we're going to draft a quarterback, and then all of a sudden, I'm coming back, and it's all good.
I'm kind of throwing in the conspiracy theory part of this. I think there is malcontent between Belichick and Kraft right now. I think that Bill Belichick wants to make the best football decisions for the Patriots. I think Bill Belichick was ready to have Garoppolo be the heir apparent to Tom Brady. I think that Tom Brady's very close with Robert Kraft, and Robert Kraft, in so many words, told Belichick to move Garoppolo along, that they wanted to keep Brady.
So he moved him for a ham sandwich?
So I think it was kind of an FU from Belichick, and he just moved him for a ham sandwich. And I think there's some real malcontent right now between the players and Belichick with that trainer, who essentially was serving as a doctor without being a doctor. And Belichick pretty well kicked him out and just said, "You're out of here. I don't want you around the players." but yet Gronkowski and Brady and some of these guys are very close with this trainer. And so I feel like there's a little bit of an internal power struggle right now going on in New England. And you're also seeing people looking at the end. Brady's at the end of his career. How long does Belichick want to stay around? And Robert Kraft, where's he at with things? And so, you're at the end of the story right now, and they're into this final chapter. And I think everybody kind of want to write this final chapter their own way. So it's interesting. The Patriots lost a lot this offseason. And so I don't know right now. Of any year, I felt like this could be the year you might see a little crack in what the Patriots are doing. Because, again, their offensive leaders in Brady and Gronk and stuff appear to be somewhat at odds with the coach. And if that starts to carry over a little bit, you could see the beginnings of some internal issues with the Patriots getting along.
So, obviously, if you're not going to let Garoppolo stay on or move on from Brady, I'm not thinking that New England had any intent of taking both their first round picks and trying to move up to get a quarterback. I mean, they could have already tried, and we just don't know it. But
New England needs wide receiving help. They need offensive line help.
They need a lot of defensive help too.
Yeah, I think
they're maligned a lot of the season.
I think they're just going to sit here and they're going to take best player available at the end of the draft. That's what the Patriots will do. So I believe we're going to see Lamar Jackson go right now to the Saints if they're making this move. I mean, it could be Tremaine Edmonds, it could be Marcus Davenport, Derwin James if the Saints really are targeting a defensive player. But Saints, they had to come up quite a ways here, so it was a fairly costly move, I have to imagine, for them to get up to 14. So to me, it's Lamar Jackson if you're making that move.
What do you think New England, and I'm just seeing Brandon Cook's name up there as they name the New Orleans picks of recent years. What do you think Cooks was in New England and then out the next year? What do you think the purpose of that 1 year rental of him was, what the thought process was behind that? They just didn't get the value out of him they thought they would?
I think the Patriots rely on really, really good pre-snap reads, and I don't think he was getting in the right spots as they wanted him to. He's a great talent, but he just wasn't fitting in. And so they basically got him and then traded him off and got more back. So it looked like a pretty smart move to me on what they pulled off.
Kind of reminds me back in the Dolphins days, back in the Marino days in the 90s, and you may remember this, their offense was predicated on the quarterback and the receiver kind of reading things. And, they would the receiver kind of had to read which way he was supposed to go based off the coverage. And then, and every now and then the quarterback would see it one way and the receiver would see it other. And Marino would throw the ball 40 feet the other way and you wonder what the heck was wrong with him. But it was because they had that kind of offense. You've noticed like some of the best quarterbacks in the game, they can run those kind of very complicated offenses, but not all the wide receivers, as we've definitely seen with New England's case, can come in and handle those schemes.
Oh no,
can fit in and figure it out. Right. I mean, look at Ocho Cinco, man, he was lost.
No, that's why Danny Amendola is on the Dolphins right now, is that he can do that. And so Gase, I've been saying that all offseason, is Gase got rid of all his assistants because he is tired of not being able to run his offense. He's not able to do it because the players are not cooperating. They're running the wrong routes. They're just making mistakes left and right. And so I think he finally just said, you know what, I'm going to bring in players that at least know what they're supposed to do. And that's why you're seeing Miami draft smarter players and seeing them acquire smarter free agents. And you're seeing some of these guys go like Jarvis Landry and Ajayi. And I'm not saying that they're not smart. I'm saying they weren't doing what the scheme was designing for them to do. They were worried about their own productivity, I think, too much.
No, definitely. I mean, definitely in the case of Landry and Ajayi, their biggest focus is their individual productivity. I mean, that was no doubt. And it doesn't mean that they weren't great players, though.
No, they're very good. It's
a trade-off there.
I would have liked to have kept Jarvis Landry, but I think the reality is Danny Amendola gives Miami a player that's going to help the other receivers as well as help Tannehill on how to recognize where the defense is lining up and what route to run based on that. And so that's what you're going to see. I
mean, you don't feel like New England definitely got the best there was out of Amendola. We're just getting the end.
It was Marcus Davenport.
Yeah, which
is a very good player. That's just a value move. getting a very good edge rusher for the Saints. But Lamar Jackson remains on the board. So with everybody, I'm watching Lamar Jackson because I would love to get him in the second round or trade back into the end of the first and grab Lamar Jackson. Or Tremaine Edmonds. Either one of those players would be nice to have on the Dolphins.
Interesting. So I'm trying to think about how it would feel. How would Dolphins Twitter feel if we moved up to get Lamar Jackson?
Oh, they would love it. They would.
You think so? Even though it leaves, we need defensive talent. We need tight end help. We need linebacker help. We need defensive tackle help. Just to name a few. And you're going to give all that up to go get Lamar Jackson.
You're getting a potential future franchise quarterback still. Yeah, I think you give that up. Depending on where you're at. So right now we're in the middle of the first. So I think if you're watching for Miami to trade back into it, I think you're going to have to get into the 20s somewhere for that value to be potentially there for Miami.
I think, and Chad, I think you've managed to escape forever without actually telling us how you truly feel about Tannehill. Is he really a franchise quarterback for us, or do you feel like do you feel like we need to be looking in another direction, like today?
Here's my thought. I think before I address Tannehill, quarterback is by far and away the most important position in the league. It's a league of have and have-nots. And so the teams that typically consistently win and make the playoffs have good quarterbacks. That's why New England is so good. That's why Pittsburgh's been good for so long. Those teams have just had good quarterbacks. That's why the Colts were good for so long. And so I think it's a position that whenever you can get talent there, you should look at adding it because it's premium. And I think Miami's neglected that for a long time. Ryan Tannehill, I think he's the best quarterback we've had since Marino. And I've seen a lot of garbage in Miami with Cleo Lemons and A.J. Feelys and John Becks. And Ryan Tannehill gave Miami a quarterback that's suddenly decent. He's at least in the middle of the league right now. With that said, I don't like giving a free pass to Ryan Tannehill. I think that you want to bring in another young, capable quarterback now that Ryan Tannehill's 30. He's played a lot of games. We need a young, developmental quarterback that can play. And the reason we were so bad last year, it wasn't Ryan Tannehill. He didn't play. It was Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler was terrible. And so to me, this team can't afford to just rely on Ryan Tannehill alone. We need another capable quarterback on this team. And so that's where I'm at with quarterbacks. I think Ryan Tannehill was 6-1. He played very well with Gase, and now we're getting him back a year and a half later. He doesn't have any major arm injuries or shoulder injuries. So I'm excited. I think Ryan Tannehill, in my mind, is probably better than any of these quarterbacks in the draft right now at this juncture in his career. He's played a lot of games, and I'm not under the mindset you're going to draft Josh Rosen or Baker Mayfield, start them as rookies, and expect them to outperform a Ryan Tannehill. There's just no way. And so he's our starter. They've got him under contract for several years. I like him. I'm very glass half full with Ryan Tannehill.
Sweet. I just got a little message from Lewis that he's talking with Fitzpatrick right now, so he's going to come on once he's done with that.
Okay.
So that'll be cool. And be curious to hear what he has to say, what everybody thought, what everybody in the press room thought, their reaction to this Fitzpatrick pick. I imagine most of them would be pretty stoked about it.
Anybody that's upset about the Fitzpatrick pick, I don't know what they're thinking. So I understand there's the crowd that wanted the quarterbacks, and so you're going to have some contingent that thought Miami should have moved up. But I think you got at number 11, you got a top 5 player in this draft because of the quarterback situation. And I don't believe Miami needed. Miami has a good starting quarterback right now. We need to give Gase a guy with a strong arm that has all of the attributes to do well in the NFL that they can develop. And that's where you pick a second or third round quarterback and get him developing. You follow the Patriots model right now, and you get a second or third round guy. So I can't imagine people aren't ecstatic. I don't know who else you could have taken in this draft if you're not getting one of those quarterbacks that could have helped Miami more than Fitzpatrick right now.
No, I agree. Travis Wingfield, which I know a lot of us follow, he just said, and I think he must have tweeted this right as we made the pick. What time? Yeah. He says, and there is exactly why the Dolphins did all the public work on quarterbacks. Just got their pick of the 2 top safeties to fall right into their laps. You can fix the biggest hole on the team by penciling a name in onto a card. And then I think somebody else quoted him. They said, Finn's broadcaster has been saying this the past 2 hours on PhinManiacs. So, I mean, I've been saying it the past 2 months. But, I know, and I think a lot of people were starting to come around towards the end that's what Miami was going to do. But there was still people stuck on the fact that Miami was going to draft a quarterback. But I think some people are going to argue, the only reason Miami didn't draft a quarterback is because the quarterbacks were gone. Well, I mean, you could easily argue that Miami was the reason the quarterbacks were gone.
Oh, yeah. No, I think the Rosen one is very arguable. I mean, they jumped right in front of Miami to get him. So that tells me that the Cardinals didn't feel comfortable with him going through Miami there. I think right now it's interesting because Tremaine Edmonds is still on the board and so is Lamar Jackson. And so they're both 2 players and so are the tight ends. And so
Derwin James is still on the board, right?
Derwin James is still on the board, yeah.
Yeah, man. You got some top 10 talent is still sitting.
Well, you're getting, as we said earlier, we're seeing the value. So right now the Raiders just took Colt Miller, tackle UCLA there. Again, offensive tackles are premium positions filled in the first round of the draft. And so you're seeing teams starting to fill need positions over talent right now. I can't imagine not for the Raiders with Khalil Mack not wanting to add Tremaine Edmonds with him. But fine with me. Let him fall.
I see a trade. Buffalo just traded.
Buffalo just traded up.
How did they trade up? With what picks?
Buffalo had a pile of picks. They had 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 thirds.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize they had that many picks. So they traded up to, what was it? The Raiders? No, the Raiders.
They traded up to 7 or 8. It's where they
Baltimore?
took
Okay. So I wonder who the pick is here. Obviously, they already got their quarterback, so they're going to go get maybe James or Edmonds.
Anybody not looking for a quarterback, which Buffalo, I can't imagine they are now with McCarron and Allen. So I got to imagine they're looking at Tremaine Edmonds or Derwin James. But I mean, they had a pretty good year out of Mike Hyde last year at safety, so I don't know that they have a glaring need at safety. I would think Tremaine Edmonds would be my best guess here.
So if you're New England and you think about, let's pretend this is Brady's last year. Let's just pretend. You've got 2 of the teams in the AFC East that have just drafted rookie quarterbacks. Miami has Tannehill. What are you thinking here? Are you thinking about the future right here and trying to going to take Lamar Jackson if you could? Or are you just going to just do it for next year for New England? I mean, two of the teams, 2 of the teams in the division have drafted quarterbacks today.
It just depends if they feel like Lamar. The thing with Lamar Jackson is you've got to have an offense built around him. I don't think you can bring Lamar Jackson in and just substitute him in for Tom Brady. And so I don't know if New England's going to want to go. They don't seem like a team that would go get Lamar Jackson. I mean, I know they're rumored to maybe take him, but I don't see that right now from New England. So I don't know what to think for Lamar Jackson right now. I think the Saints were one of the biggest rumored teams. Chargers would definitely be a possibility. They might make a move for it, but there's no teams left now that are looking for. They absolutely are looking for their franchise quarterback for right away. And so anybody that goes to get Lamar Jackson now is bringing him in on potential with having behind somebody.
Yeah, no, man. No, let's see. I'm curious to see what this pick is going to be, and to see Buffalo move up twice. That's. I just kind of feel like Buffalo's done these kind of things before, and it never seems to work out for them.
Well, Buffalo really needs offensive. They really need an offensive tackle after their trade, and this might be Calvin Ridley. That wouldn't shock me there. They need receiver help badly.
That kind of popped in my head too, but it kind of reminded me. It's like they just seem to trade up so much, and the players don't work out. I mean, of course, this could be the year they crush it, which would be very disappointing.
Tremaine Edmonds. So there goes our
fantasy of our Edmonds dream.
So no, I really surprised he lasted as long as he did. Very, very talented players. So not happy he went to Buffalo, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Do you have in front of you the Miami Dolphins draft order?
For the second round, you mean? Or?
Yeah, for the rest of the picks. I was just curious.
I think
what kind of capital they had left.
Oh, they have I don't know the numbers without looking up, but I know they have the 10th pick in the second round, and then they have somewhere around that same range between 9 and 11 in the third round, and then they have 2 fourth-round picks, I believe.
Oh, and then I think I've almost found it. Here we go. So we had 11, obviously. We've got number 42 overall. So in the second, they got a third, they got a fourth. Oh, that's okay. I see. They got a first, second, third, fourth. Oh, okay, hold on one second. Okay, this just gives me the numbers, so it doesn't give me the rounds. I don't know the numbers very well. They got the 42nd overall, the 73rd overall, 123rd, 131st.
Yeah, but
they don't have a lot of draft capital.
No, they basically just have their full allotment of picks. They have 2 fourths and no fifth, and so that's where they're at. I don't know where they're at in the 6th or 7th, but.
Yeah, that's. I don't know whoever decided to analyze it like that, but boy, that was. I mean, whoever decided to order it like that and not put the rounds, I want to shoot that person in the face.
No, I mean, Miami. I would say right now they've got to get a tight end. That's a must-fill position yet for the team, and I have to imagine they're going to do that in the second or third round for sure. So they need one of those second, third round picks. I think they really need to fill linebacker and D tackle too. So I look at it like Miami needs 3 potential starters yet that they can get. Now the defensive tackle can be rotational. The linebacker cannot be. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 3-down linebacker. So they're not desperate for those positions, but they do need to fill them. So I don't know right now. I don't know where they rank the tight ends. If the number 1 tight end's on the board and you're getting into the end of the first round, it might be worthwhile to give up a 4th to jump back into the end of the first and get that tight end.
Yeah, no, I could see him do that. I mean, something like that would excite me. I was kind of hoping I'd see them leave after the 3rd round and we would have tight end, linebacker, and a defensive tackle. Now, obviously, taking Fitzpatrick was fantastic, but it still doesn't fill any of those 3 needs, which I think are the 3 biggest needs.
All right, we've got Lewis calling in.
What's going on, guys?
Hey, Lewis.
How's everybody feeling?
Okay, thank you. Yep.
What's the overall consensus on the pick, Lewis?
Well, this is the pick that we wanted, man. This is the pick that I think was supposed to be happening. I'm ecstatic that this was the pick that was made because now, once again, like I was saying earlier, is that with Minka Fitzpatrick, now you have a guy who can be versatile. He can be all over the field. He can play free safety. He can play cornerback. He can do literally anything that the Dolphins need them to do, and it gives them versatility to do things with TJ McDonald. Now, Chris Greer, the GM, didn't say that that's what they would do. He said that was more of a coach's decision, which obviously it makes sense, but the fact that now that he is a Miami Dolphin, that possibility is now something that can be considered, and so that should help things along immensely. I'm happy. Most of the guys in the room are happy. For a while, I was a little afraid that Josh Rosen would be the pick, but then Arizona went up and got him. So,
yeah, I'm 100% with you, Lewis. So I think the things could not have went better for the Dolphins. This was my number 1 pick in the draft. I know it was your favorite pick for him in the draft, and so have you talked to many other media members? Does this seem like a big hit for them? They're happy, or do you think they were wanting Miami to make a move up for Rosen?
Well, most people are pretty satisfied. Nobody was convinced that the Dolphins were going quarterback, and not many people actually thought they really needed a first rounder. So the consensus is that Fitzpatrick is a pretty good choice. A lot of people wanted Roquan, but obviously he went much earlier. So, but it's all good in here, I think. So, and just got finished talking to Minka Fitzpatrick. A lot of good stuff, basically saying that he gave a lot of credit to Nick Saban for helping him develop to be the prospect that he is today, helping with his mental maturity and always finding ways to like tweak his game and find little flaws here and there. He even said at one point it got frustrating, and Nick Saban actually pulled him aside and said that that Saban could see how great Fitzpatrick could be, and that was why he was always so hard on him. So basically, what we're getting is like the ultimate polished prospect.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. talking to Ron, and I said there couldn't have been a better player in the draft in terms of a need that can impact this team right now than Fitzpatrick. So really, really big pick, both for the coming year and in future years. So love it. Chargers are on the board also, just so people know.
There's still a possibility. Chris Greer did not rule out the possibility of the Dolphins trading back up. It depends on how the board falls. There were some teams that are looking to trade out of the first, so who knows?
Yeah, I think so too. I was talking to Ron, and I was saying this team desperately needs a starting tight end, and if their number one rated tight end's on the board there at the end of the first, I might throw a fourth off just to ensure I get him. That's probably the next biggest thing to impact this team to make it better is this offense needs a real threat at tight end, and they've got to get that in this draft.
And I'm sure they will. I'm sure that somebody's going to be available in round 2. But the way that things are falling, I didn't see if Lamar Jackson got taken yet. I don't think he has.
No, he's still on the board right now. So Tremaine Edmonds just came off. Buffalo traded up to get Tremaine Edmonds, and so good draft for Buffalo, I have to say. For what
Buffalo's using up a lot of ammo.
Yeah, I don't know. I told Ron I'm not quite sure how I feel about throwing Josh Allen in from a small school without much offensive line and wide receiver help, and it sounds like they're trading off a bunch of their picks to give him that. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out for him.
All right, let's see what the Chargers do, guys.
Derwin James, what a pick for the Chargers.
That's 17. That's insane. Top 10 talent.
I had said from the beginning that if Baker Mayfield went first overall, the whole game would change, and it looks like it has.
Absolutely did. I think that's what allowed Miami to get Fitzpatrick was Baker Mayfield going number 1 overall. I really do.
If Baker Mayfield doesn't go number 1 overall, and let's say it's Sam Darnold, like why do we think it's different? Don't the Jets just take Baker Mayfield and they switch picks and we get the same result we have now?
I don't know.
Because other teams might have had Baker Mayfield on their board, and then everything had to get flip-flopped.
Yeah, I think Denver may have considered Baker Mayfield. So I think there's just one of these teams that went where they did. So what we needed was the trade that happened was a team that would have been interested in Fitzpatrick, and so that helped us. And then when Buffalo came up to get Allen, I mean that was a team that may have taken Fitzpatrick, and Denver was the other big team. And by Cleveland taking Baker Mayfield and allowing Chubb to fall to 5. So Denver took him. I really think if Chubb's gone, Fitzpatrick goes to Denver. I really do.
All right, that makes sense.
That's what I'm talking about. This whole Baker Mayfield going first overall changed everything. The board suddenly went absolutely ballistic.
Yeah, so it all fell in place for Miami.
This literally could not have gone any better for Miami. And if still nobody picks Lamar Jackson, then we still have something going here. Oh, the Packers looks like they just went up.
Oh, Packers. Who do you think the Packers are targeting to move up?
I honestly don't know. I'm still wondering where Lamar Jackson's going to go. I can't imagine that people are so down on his throwing ability that they're just going to let him keep falling and falling. I figured he
No. I wish Miami would go make a run at him right now. But the thing is right now is, as I was mentioning to Ron, all the teams that needed a franchise quarterback are now have acquired him. And so now you're looking at teams that are going to be taking Lamar Jackson for maybe playing him in 2 to 3 years. And so that makes it a lot harder to move up in the draft because everybody has starters they need somewhere right now.
Yep. So anyway, I hope the show's going well, guys. I don't know if you're going to keep going because, like I said,
we'll be tying it up here shortly. So
okay.
If I knew Miami was going to trade back up, I'd keep it going. But who knows at this point? So.
Yeah, I just don't think they have the ammo to do it. To be honest with you.
Seems unlikely at this point.
Yeah, they need too much.
If it's the bottom of the first round, then you could just give up the second and maybe a fourth, and you'd be fine.
Yeah, I mean, if they want Lamar Jackson and they make that move, yeah, I think it's much more likely they make that move for the tight end right now. Because they need to start a tight end they can start on opening day, and it's just hard any position to get rookies you can start on opening day. So I don't know how many of those tight ends meet that criteria that you feel like you can immediately put as your number 1 tight end.
So what tight ends do you see are valuable enough to go get like really late first round? Or go to get with Philly or Minnesota or Jacksonville maybe and make a trade.
None. That's the $1 million question, isn't it? I don't know. I mean, I've looked at them all. I don't see that there's like a O.J. Howard type of freak athletic specimen in this draft. So. I don't know who Miami likes. They looked at all of them for the most part. Isn't the Oklahoma tight end the number one, Andrews, rated tight end?
Possibly.
You have the guy that was
it's
out
kind
of
of it's not a consensus. It's not a consensus with tight ends.
That's what I mean. It's not a consensus. Dallas Goedert, if I'm saying his name right, I know he's been tied to Miami a lot, but he's more of a third round sort of guy, I think.
What about Galecki? Is that his? Did I pronounce his name correctly?
Penn State guy?
Definitely not.
That's definitely a third or fourth rounder.
See, I like him though, man. I'd take it in the third or fourth round. But not to say we'd move up, but I'd take him in the third or fourth round. Like
the guy from Wisconsin is in that third or fourth round range. I don't know. It really depends on who they want, but I would think that it's. I got to look it up on the internet. Isn't Andrews the guy from Oklahoma? Isn't that I still think that's the number one rated tight end. Let me look at the tight end board here.
I just hate that Miami's put themselves in such a position where they absolutely have to make it work where they're going to have a tight end, which possibly means they overdraft or...
There will be one in the second round, guys. I'm sure of it. There's no way that there's going to be such a run on tight ends that Miami's not going to get a shot.
I must be wrong. Yeah, Mark Andrews is rated 7 on this board. The number one right now is Hayden Hurst, who's the tight end from South Carolina. I know he's got a good receiving threat, but I'm looking at right now, he's 250 pounds, and he's a little older.
He's also a blocker.
Well, yeah.
He's number one.
He's probably the most capable to insert and start. Dallas Goedert from South Dakota, I know he's been tied a lot to Dolphins as well, and he's physically got a lot of capability. Gillespie is the third-rated tight end. Jordan Akins from Central Florida is the fourth. Chris Herndon from Miami. And Ian Thomas from Indiana. So none of those guys stand out as go get me. I'm the guy to me.
Well, who does in this draft? Who's left that we could use as a good position that we could go up towards the end of the first round? You're like, go get this guy or go get that guy at any position. I think
you've got Rashaan Evans and Vander Esch, those two linebackers. Would definitely fill a need for Miami. And I think they're probably mocking in late first, early second round range. If Miami really, really likes one of those guys, that might be worthwhile because you might be starting him on open day as well. Otherwise, it might be one of the D tackles if Miami really likes them because they definitely need to add a big D tackle into their rotation.
Yeah, there's still a lot of things that Miami needs to do, but what they're going to do, I honestly have no clue at this point. Maybe there's going to be a defensive tackle there later down the line, or maybe there's going to be still a linebacker. Because the way this board has fallen, all of a sudden, it's like pretty much every single mock draft has been just blown to crap. There's just no way to know anymore.
Yep.
Yeah. Every year it's that way. Every year we think we have it figured out, and every year we don't. That's always. It's like we were talking, Lewis. We were saying like the consensus of who the top players are is always pretty much like if you look at who we thought the top players are. I mean, those are the players that have been drafted. It really hasn't been surprises. The only thing that surprised us is who takes whom. I mean, nobody ever can figure that out. It's always a crapshoot. We didn't even know who the first round pick was till it came in, which is how often does that happen?
Jair Alexander to Green Bay.
Yep. Green Bay just took the number 2 corner in the draft. Jair, good pick for him. They traded up for him, so
all the way at 18 too, man. Yeah. Just the 4 quarterbacks going already has pushed a lot of talent, not just our way with Fitzpatrick, but with a lot of teams.
You just can't play or have defense today in today's NFL unless you have several guys that can cover these. There's only a few of these guys that come out of college that you can insert right away and rely on him. So it doesn't shock me Green Bay gave up the capital to move up to get him.
So if you think about Miami's secondary right now, with Tank, X, Bobby McCain, Jones, Fitzpatrick, and McDonald. I mean, how do we feel about that, guys? I think that our defensive backs, it's got to be one of the
more
top
4-2-5.
One of the top units on our team, right? But then our defensive lines, especially the ends, that's a good room too.
Yeah, no, Fitzpatrick changed everything though, because he can do both positions. He can cover. And so
this is the thing about Fitzpatrick. Again, see, this is the discussion that needs to be had here, because with Fitzpatrick, suddenly the need for a linebacker is not as strong. Right now at linebacker, the Dolphins have Stephon Anthony, Kiko Alonso, Raekwon McMillan, and of course you still have guys like Mike Hall and Chase Allen and those guys. Now they're not necessarily stars, but if necessary for backup roles, they could do that. Now with Fitzpatrick, again, this is where the McDonald thing comes in. This NFL is built on speed and passing and being able to cover and all of these things. You don't necessarily need 3 linebackers on the field anymore. Now you have the opportunity to have 3 safeties on the field as well as your 2 cornerbacks, and that just makes it so that you don't necessarily need to have 3 linebackers on the field.
Oh,
with
yeah, absolutely.
Kiko and Raekwon, that's your linebacker core in a defense. And you don't really need anything else because now you have TJ McDonald who can act as a hybrid.
Well, I think they still need another linebacker, but they don't. Say, here's the thing to me. You can look at, I really want a special linebacker that can play the run and can cover. I want a good tackler that can cover. And those are so hard to get, a linebacker that can do both. Or you can look at it like, no, I want a defensive back that can play safety and tackle and cover. And that's what you're getting with Fitzpatrick, is a guy that can actually cover. Like it's one thing to have a TJ McDonald or Rashad Jones because they're great athletes and they can really come up and hit. But again, with Fitzpatrick, you can put him man to man on a wide receiver, and that makes it very difficult for an offense to know what you're doing on offense, because you can roll Fitzpatrick over and leave him one-on-one. And a lot of safeties you can't do that with. Like if you were rolling TJ McDonald over to put on a team's 1 or 2 wide receiver, you've got a mismatch right away. So you're just hoping they don't exploit it. And so it's a what you can do with flexibility, and that is today's NFL. You're right, Lewis. You've got to have guys that can cover. Any given time, you need 3 defensive backs on the field, really. And Miami's essentially getting that with a guy that can also be the safety. They don't have to pull out a safety and put in another defensive back. You can just leave Minka Fitzpatrick in there.
You think about Channing Crowder too, and even on your show, I think it was a couple of years ago, Lewis, maybe it was last year. I mean, he kind of almost dismissed the linebacker position a little bit, and that guy played linebacker his entire career and said, you need defensive ends that can fly off the ball, and you need cornerbacks that can cover. And when you have those 2 things, you have a good defense. I just don't see how we don't have those. I don't see how we just don't have the. I mean, you think about if X plays this coming year the way he played the second half of last season. I mean, the guy was shut down. If Tank just plays how we need him to, the likelihood of having 2 shutdown guys is not, going to likely happen, but he could just play decent. I mean, we know Rashad Jones is good. We feel like we have a talented guy in Fitzpatrick. We know we have talent at the defensive end position. I mean, the only question you have about this team, are we going to get gutted up the middle because we question the linebackers and we question the middle of the defense right now a little bit.
Yeah, that's why I think it's going to be between the 2nd and 4th round picks. We're going to get and it's going to be a big guy. It's not going to be like a 290-pound defensive tackle that's very athletic that can shoot gaps. It's going to be a 320, 330-pound. Yeah, it's going to be a Wilfork type, not Vince Wilfork, obviously, but a guy that's at the buffet right now watching the draft, waiting to get picked, is the guy they're going to pick.
I feel like Miami is just like, and it doesn't mean it'll happen. And I'm not saying here, their defense is going to be sick, but don't you almost feel like they're right on the cusp of maybe putting together something special on the defensive side of the ball? With some of the talent they have, young talent too. Like I'm even like, let's take away Jones right now. I mean, you talk about Fitzpatrick, talk about X, you're talking about Tank, McCain, Harris. I mean, they got some. Even our defensive tackle unit right now is a very young group with Phillips, Taylor, and Godchow. McMillan is young. I mean, they do this. It could all fall apart. It could all not work. It could be coached poorly. Don't say that. But I'm just saying, I don't want to sit here and just speaking hyperbole the whole time. But don't you feel like they're right on that just cusp of maybe somehow working together and putting together something really special? I don't think it's out of like, we need 4 other positions and then it can happen. Like it could happen with the talent they have right now on this team. It isn't about having to go out and find another 2 or 3 special players. Like, it could happen right as we speak.
Which is why I wanted defense so badly in this draft. Everybody wanted a quarterback, and that's why I was thinking to myself, do you want to win in 2018 or don't you? Because if you use your first-round pick on Josh Rosen, you are basically saying that 2018 is a wash. Don't bother. It's not worth it. And just let 2019 happen so that Rosen can come in and Tannehill can be dumped. That's basically the mentality that most people, I feel like, had with the whole Rosen situation. People tried to say, well, we have a backup for Tannehill. You weren't looking for him to back up Tannehill. You wanted Rosen to replace him. As early as 2019, as early as 2018, heck. It's like, but if you have a defense that is built strong, which is what they are doing right now, if you have a young core on defense that can make sure that other teams can't necessarily score on you. We've already seen what 2016 can do. They moved the ball. They ran the ball. They were able to do all sorts of incredible things. And now with the way that the offense is built so that it's more of a solid team, mentally mature, it's a team that knows that they have to study, that they have to pay attention, that they have to do everything the way that they're supposed to do it and not by messing around and trying to do things their own way, which is something that they had a problem with before. Now you have the defense, which is a strong core of young players who are developing, who are improving, who are already good to begin with, and are still going to get better. This team is built to win. It is. And a lot of people don't seem to realize this because they're so busy being hooked on what happened in 2017 that they act like 2016 was nothing but a fluke. And they try to point to the fact that, oh, we only beat losing teams. It still wins. It still wins. And it's not like that those teams in 2016 were completely like, what do you expect? They're still NFL teams. They were still difficult. The Dolphins almost lost to Cleveland last year. Cleveland. Or I should say 2016. They almost lost to Cleveland in 2016. But you know what? They got their act together and started winning. You don't go 7-1 in the NFL by accident. You don't go 7-1 in the NFL just because all of your opponents are bad. Does that mean that every opponent in that 7-1 stretch was just god-awful? The Browns were god-awful, and they almost lost. Something had to change. Something had to make a difference, and it did. They woke up. They got good. They started working together as a team more, and it made a difference. It went away in 2017 under Jay Cutler. It all kind of fell apart at the seams, and Adam Gase was furious over it. Now this team is built on players who are going to focus on being a team first, and it's those teams that win in the NFL. New England is a perennial Super Bowl contender, and it's not because of Tom Brady all by himself. It's because this team, that team wins together. Everybody knows where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, no questions asked, and that's how they win all the time because they are probably one of the most studious teams in the entire NFL. Now the Dolphins are trying to build off that blueprint. Study, focus, be where you're supposed to be there on time, and everything will take care of itself. This team is built to win, and anybody who doesn't see that is too focused on what the talent level is at quarterback or somewhere else. Talent can be overcome by team playing skills, and that's what the Dolphins are going for.
Yeah, I agree, man. I'm excited about where the defense could be. I just hope they can put it together faster, more now instead of then.
Quick update: the Cowboys just took Leighton Vander Esch, so another one of the linebackers are off the board there.
Like you said, I don't think we're going up for any of these guys anyway, so it's not likely. I think you're probably leaning. I'm just going to go with you guys to think that second round picks they're probably going to take a tight end. Concerned they'll overdraft a little just because of such a need, such a hole they've put themselves in with that position.
Yeah, I have to think that's their target right now is the tight end. I just don't know where they've got him ranked. Because as Lewis said, I don't have a consensus. Like I said, even though he wasn't amazing as rookie, O.J. Howard was obviously a very special athlete, and you don't really have that sort of player in this draft. So, yeah, you don't want to get in a position where you're overdrafting an average guy.
Well, what do you say, guys? Should we call it here?
Yep, I think that's good.
So I just want to point out apologies to anybody who tried to call in. I don't know if there was anybody trying, but for those that we were having some technical difficulties with the calling. We've had this in the past before. Things kind of went wrong when I used my computer and it didn't work out so well. But in any case, hopefully next week we'll have it working again. And I'm sure that we're going to have some post-draft shows ready to go for all of you. And just stay tuned because this draft is not over yet. The first round may be almost complete, but there's still 6 more rounds to go.
Yep. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, guys.